And it's the Anything Podcast. I'm Aaron.
I'm Chris. So, Aaron, I got to ask you a question real quick.
Okay, quick. Because I have two things to say to you, sir.
All right. Well, I want to ask you a question. During this whole epidemic of craziness and new normal, what have you been doing to help boost your immunity and just your own body and taking care of yourself? Or have you done anything? Or have you kind of just gone down a little bit?
He's got immunities. Well, first of all, I want to start this podcast off
Well,
by
I want you
saying,
to answer that, though.
I will. We'll get to it. But I have to say these. This is something I have to get off my chest. I've been thinking about it for 2 weeks. So, and this is something that maybe the pandemic has, I probably would have said anyway. But as you know, I went through a very difficult time this past year with things that were going on in my personal life. And I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you and to thank our friend Gwen for being there for me during one of the most difficult times in my life. And then this
Which time
pandemic
was it?
happened.
You're talking about around Christmas time
Yeah, well,
or earlier?
just this whole year, like the things
Oh,
that were
okay,
going on
gotcha.
in my personal life. And I had consulted you, I consulted our friend Gwen, who both told me the same thing. But you were both there for me when no one else was there for me in the way that I needed them to be there for me. And then the pandemic happened, right? And I'm self-sufficient on my own. I don't need anything during the pandemic. I needed people before that. But now that the pandemic happened, I've
Nobody
been
had
okay.
anybody.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's what could be challenging for people. So what I have been doing um, for my immunities, it's really weird. I have not been getting the exercise that I need to get. I have when the pandemic happened, I just was snatching all the food that I could possibly get because there was shortages. So I bought a lot of junk food, and before that, I was eating healthy. But the only things that were left were like Ho-Hos and Twinkies. There was a lot of healthy food too,
Because
but
they'll survive any
yeah,
pandemic.
yeah. So no, I have not been up until this week. An old friend of mine had called that I haven't talked to about 5 years. What I've been doing is I've been taking vitamin D, vitamin B, vitamin C, and yesterday I went hiking and I've been trying to get um, more healthy, but I need to really do a lot of work because I feel out of shape. I feel tired. I feel sluggish. I don't feel healthy. And I have not been doing anything to take care. Oh, and also I have a little happy light that you're supposed to use if you don't get sunlight during the wintertime in this tundra that we live in. I
Mhm.
don't know if that actually helps, but I figured it couldn't hurt. So I've been doing 20 minutes of that every night too while I do my meditation.
Well, my question is, have you felt any difference using that or no?
I don't know because that's supposed to help you with what I call SAD, which is seasonal affective disorder. And I don't know.
Or vitamin D deficiency
That's
because we live
exactly
in a
it.
cloudy ass area
We
that
really
sucks.
do. It certainly does. So I bought that a while ago, like last year, and I was using it pretty consistently, but I don't think it's an instant thing where as soon as you use it, you're like, yeah, I think it's one of those
It'll
things that
pro
can build
it
up.
more than likely it'll probably give you like low doses of something.
Right.
And if you're already deficient, it might like here's your normal level and it might kind of go like this a little bit.
Hmm.
So who knows? I mean, you'd probably have to look at a study. But actually that's funny you say that because you said exactly how I was at the beginning of this whole thing too, was the sluggish, the cloudiness, the fogginess. And that's when I said, hey, I think I might have it, because they were saying, oh, now with the new things that are coming out about it besides fever and coughing and hardness of breath and that, they're like, oh, you could have fatigue, you could have. And I'm like, fuck, I might have it. But I'm like, wait, I also felt this way a few months ago when I hit my peak weight limit back then. So like I know what my upper limit in body weight is when I hit it, because I hit it. I felt like shit. So I started doing cardio, I started eating good, I started getting healthy. Then I actually got sick, and this was around Christmas, New Year's time frame, right in that week. I got sick. I wasn't feeling well, so it kind of took its time off, but I got back into it somewhat. But the problem was, then once this whole pandemic hit, and even a little before that, I started like slacking a little bit in terms of not working out as much as I should have, not eating as good as I should have, but still trying to keep an eye on it. And so this fast forward to March, when they're like, oh, there's could be the possibility of a 2-week detention or a 2-week stay at home type thing. So we go out, we get food. And yeah, you were, that was the day when you actually had to be quarantined, and they were talking about everybody being under quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
And this was before everything. So we're like, all right, well, let's go get 2 weeks worth of food and that. So we got 2 weeks worth of food and got snacks just like you did.
Yeah.
The problem was I ate all those snacks in like 2 days. So it was what was supposed to be 2 weeks worth of food ended up being like a day and a half. And I was, I don't know if I would say depressed would be the answer, but I think it was this like test of myself that was coming, because it was like everything had to shut down. And yes, there was this world that we were living in that was like this crazy nightmare nobody can wake up from.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't really working out. I was just laying around. I was, I'd get up. I had to close my business. I don't drive Uber and Lyft. One, because the whole COVID issues, but also because wasn't really because of that, I should say, but it was more because there wasn't as much business. There was some issues I had with my vehicle around that time too, which have since been fixed, which is nice. But so those things kind of like just made you sit and do nothing. And it sucked, because I like to go out. I like to be around people. I like to do things. I like to whatever. And this is also coupling at the same time where, yeah, this area, it's cold, it's rainy, it's shitty, it's cloudy, you don't get any sun, you just are drained.
Yeah.
So like up until about 5 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, I started working out. I started working out every single day. I've only not worked out maybe 1 or 2 days over the last 6 weeks. Thank God for having home gym equipment. So I worked out every day. And then maybe about 2 weeks ago, I was still not eating great. We had Easter and we had all that. So it was like the chocolate and the snacks and the sugar and the crap. But like and that was the time when I said, I think I may have it, because like I just felt sluggish again. I felt foggy. I felt so out of it. Like it wasn't right. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think that's it. I really don't. Because I'm like, I felt this before, because it was a few months ago when I had it. And then since then, I have kind of pretty much cut most sugar out. I may have like a piece of chocolate here or there every day or two or something. And then pretty much cut out a lot of carbs. So it's pretty much a very primal diet, like of eating meats, vegetables, and then some cheeses, and so there a little bit of dairy with cheese and eggs and that. But my mental state, my mental clarity, my strength, like I had like right here, I don't know what the fuck was going on, dude. Like I would pick up a water and it would be like this shooting pain right in here. I'm like, do I have like a fucking like benign cancerous tumor or something growing in here? And because it was so weird. And it was just inflammation, because now I've been eating much better. I've been working out much better. I've been doing cardio twice a day and been really, taking care of myself. And I'm like, I feel great. The crazy thing is though, I'm still at the 200 mark. Like my max weight is around 205, 210. So I'm like right up there. But the thing is, because I'm working out so much, because of the extra protein, the muscle growth, because muscle is more dense than fat, has started taking over. And, you know, my girlfriend said to me the other day, she's like, I see your face is thinning out and I see things. And I'm like, great, that's awesome. But I want the gut and shit to go away. But the good news is, I have to say, like you said, you feel sluggish, you feel foggy, you feel that, man, get out, get some sun. I've been walking anytime it's sunny. I'm out walking. Now that it's warmer, I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt, getting the sun as much as I can to get that vitamin D back up where it should be. I do take supplements as well, but you know, I gotta say, just in those couple of weeks from doing those changes, drastically changed how I feel, my energy levels, all of that stuff. So like doing good cardio, high intensity cardio, which is 30 minutes twice a day, just to get back up there, you know, working out. And here's the cool thing, even though gyms may be closed in some areas, there's so much you can do to do a workout at home. And I highly suggest doing that. And the funny thing is, I was listening to a bunch of Rogan's podcasts this past week, all the new ones from this week. And that's what he was talking about, was like, you know, trying to boost your immunity, trying to boost your, you know, get the workouts in, like the cardio workouts. And one final thing, because I don't want to take over and everything. I want to have the back and forth. But the last thing was, yesterday we were talking about cold showers, because I texted you about the Dr. Rhonda Patrick Joe Rogan episode, which is 1474, I believe. So anybody who wants to go back and watch or listen to that, highly suggest doing that. But I texted you saying, that's it. I'm getting a sauna, because they were talking about the heat shot proteins. And yeah, I work out doing cardio twice a day. You get fucking hot. Like I'm dripping sweat, like my like sweat marks just going down, which is great. And so you're like, oh, do you take a cold shower? I'm like, I don't like it.
No.
So I got to tell you though, I took a cold shower earlier today, and my you know, around here, I think the lake's 42. So that means our cold water is 42 degrees. I don't think you're supposed to go that cold. I could be completely wrong though, but so what I did was I did take a cold shower today. Like it literally just took the entire shower cold. And it wasn't like freezing the 42 degrees. It was here's the half point on the hot cold. Here's the cold. It was over this way. So it was more on the cold. There was a lot less warm coming in. And I got to say, right when it first started, holy shit. I'm like, I was jumping in myself. My balls, they went up and fucking hurt because of that. So I think I did it right. But I got to say, dude, after I took a cold shower, holy fuck, I felt really good.
Well, so I was watching another podcast, Tom Bilyeu, who I didn't know who he was, but you know, YouTube suggests things for you. And his podcast called Impact Theory, and I forget who he had on there because this was 2 years ago at least. But one of the guys that he was talking to had said that he takes a cold shower, and even at the end of his shower, he tries to at least get cold water on his forehead, right? And it helps for your whole body. So what I was doing for a while is, after my hot shower, I was turning it to cold, but it's just nuts. Like you freeze, it sucks. It sucks so bad. And I'm not doing that. So
no,
the heat I could take,
dude, I actually
sucks.
I
did feel good though.
Right. I like warm showers. I don't like hot. I hate hot showers.
Really?
Oh God. Like my girlfriend, she takes a shower. She's white, and she'll have the hot, like the fucking water the whole way up. I'm like, you're literally burning yourself. Like I can see the red mark because she's standing there sometimes, just like letting the heat hit her. And you can see like the red marks on her body where the water's hitting, and then the normal skin color. And it's like, that's not normal.
See, I like hot too. Now, do you stand, or does she stand with her back or her front towards the shower?
I don't know. I don't stare at her in the shower.
What about you? Do you, when you shower, is the water on your front or
Oh,
hitting your
both.
back?
I go back and
Okay.
forth. So it just depends on how, like, where I am in the wash phase.
So when I turn on the hot water and I get in there, but it's mostly on my back and then I turn around to wash the soap and stuff off, but it's
Um,
mostly on my back. And I think that's because I take such a hot shower. It's easy to like, bear it, but
well, I
maybe I
start
should
off
turn that.
in the front, so it hits me because normally it's right after cardio. I always take a shower after that because you're sweating your
Yeah, for
nad sack
sure.
off. So yeah, I what I do is I will get in the shower and I'm facing the shower head and it's coming down literally on my head because most of your blood is going to be circulating through your brain and you have your largest veins that are most exposed at your neck. So I get the head and the neck and just I literally stand, so the shower head's coming down here like this. I'm letting the water go down on me and like cover my face. You can still breathe, you can still look out because the water just goes
Yeah.
down.
See, that's what I do when I'm
And
done washing my hair.
yeah, I do that right
Interesting.
off the bat to start. Then I turn around, and for the most part, yeah, I'm facing my back towards the
Okay.
shower.
Yeah.
But yeah, today, like I said, I just took a cold shower, and
No. No.
no, seriously, at first it
It
sucked.
sucks
I'm
so
like,
bad.
you gotta fuck this shit. I'm like, fuck. And then,
Yeah.
like I said, my balls literally went up because that's your balls are like
Mhm. Like a
temperature
frightened
sensitive.
turtle.
So the longer they hang, it's
Yeah.
because you're hot. So like they go when they're hanging down like this, and then they go like that,
Yeah.
then you have a real problem, and they start hurting. So it was like almost like blue balls kind of thing
Uh-huh.
just because it was cold.
Yeah.
So, but I gotta say, like after about the 2 minute initial shock, and once because the body gets used to it actually fairly
Yeah,
quickly.
it does.
So after you get through that shock phase, it was uncomfortable in terms like being cold and not like the
Mhm.
normal shower, like you could just stand there and you feel good. No, it was like, oh, I gotta like get moving and like, but it felt great. And like afterwards, I don't know how your skin feels when you get out of a hot shower, but when I get out, my skin kind of feels dry and I have to put a moisturizer on. So either the
Ah,
face, arms, legs, and if it's dry during the dry season, then I got to do moisturizer all over the place. But yet, if like getting out of the cold shower today, I didn't have that feeling at
really?
all. I felt I felt great. Like I'm actually going to do this again. Like I actually look forward, like not look forward to it, but I'm like
It's because it
I
sucks.
just felt good. I get out of the cold shower and I'm like, wow,
Yeah, you do feel good.
I feel more energy. I do feel more energy, and it's because you go from such a hot shock protein to a cold shock protein.
Mhm.
What they were talking about with Dr. Rhonda Patrick, and it's like, damn, that feels like I gotta say to you, like, because that's what we were talking about yesterday. It was like, no, I don't like cold showers, and I'm like,
Mhm.
dude, seriously, after you try it, after you
Oh, no,
get
I've been
that
doing it, so
couple minute breakthrough,
yeah.
it's not that bad. But yeah, like I said, after I got out, my skin, I didn't need moisturizer on, and it didn't still doesn't feel dry. And after we get off the podcast, I got to go do my second cardio workout. I'm gonna do the same thing, a nice cold shower.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because the dry skin issue, do you think that it's because of the chlorinated water?
It's a
I was
very
going I was going to buy one of those shower heads that has a filter in it that filters out those chemicals. They're not very expensive. And I was
mm-mm.
thinking like maybe my hair will be more lustrous, but I didn't think about the dryness of my skin too. I
Yeah,
wonder if that'll help.
I think it's both because when you take a hot shower, you're also sweating.
Yeah, that makes
So your
sense.
body's still trying to cool itself down. So like even if you do cardio, if you're out walking or sweating or something, and you come in, you take a hot shower, your body is like, I'm still hot and I need to cool down. So it's going to sweat. The only difference is you don't feel that because there's all this water around you,
Yeah.
and it's going off as quick as it's coming on. So when you sweat, it also helps towards drying out your skin because all that water that was in your skin now has to go out. So like, yeah, I mean, when I'm sweating from cardio, it's a different feeling because afterwards it you just feel like the sweat dry where it kind of like tightens up the skin a little bit. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Hmm.
So you get that, but like after a shower, it's like it feels like, oh my God, I actually need like moisturizer on me. But yeah, today, I get out and I didn't like I dried off. Not that I didn't. That was the first time in a forever that I could literally think of where I'm like, I feel good. Like my skin actually felt good too.
Well, after the Rhonda, Dr. Rhonda podcast, I had known that sauna was good for you, and what I was doing a couple years ago, I only did it for a week, I think, or not very long because it just sucked. But after the hot shower, I would turn the cold water on and try to tolerate it as long as I could. But it just, after a while, I'm like, this sucks. I don't like it.
Hmm.
So, but you're right. But this time after the Dr. Rhonda, I thought I'm going to do sauna and then I'm going to do my meditation because I've been trying to do 20 minutes of meditation every night. And it's hard because you get distracted in life, but I've got like 13 days in a row now that I did it every night at 11 o'clock, where I did 20 minutes. Well, this after the Dr. Rhonda, that night I did the hot shower, then I turned it to the cold water, and I only lasted about a minute or two. And I'm like, I don't care what the benefits are. This sucks. I'm getting out. But you're right. Once I came back, then I sat down and I do Indian style because I can't put my feet in like the lotus position that
Hmm.
you see all these
You got to
um
yoga stretch that shit
yeah
out.
these yoga real meditators can do the lotus. I can't do it, so I just sit Indian style or whatever they call it. I hope I didn't offend someone just now, but um
No
anyway,
safe space.
yeah. It was like that's what I grew up with in my school. That's what we called it. That's what I refer to it. So cross-legged. Okay.
Okay, dude.
Yeah. So, but that's what I sit. But when I did notice when I sat there that I felt much more comfortable than I normally do.
Hmm.
And the time flew by because meditation can be hard. It's difficult. The first couple times you do it, if you get into it, it's easy. But after a while, it becomes like a chore, kind of like working out, where if you're not really into it, it's difficult.
Hmm.
But I did feel invigorated after the hot shower. But the other thing that I have been struggling with during the pandemic is it was threefold. I was eating crappy food. I started eating a ton of sugar because I thought like, who knows what's going to happen in the future. I'm just going to eat things that are good and that last long. I bought a bunch of canned food, a bunch of junk food. Like I
Hmm.
didn't care about, you know, just whatever was available. And I'm like, if, who knows what's going to happen in the future. So I'm just eating stuff that tastes good. So I fell off that way. But then also doing the work from home, I sit 8.5 hours a day and my job is mentally exhausting. So by the time I'm done with my job, I just want to completely shut down and I'm even more tired when what I need to do is just overpower and get exercise because it's a cumulative
Yeah, you
effect.
got to break that cycle.
Yeah, really
Once
bad.
that's how what like I said for me, I was kind of falling off that chain. I was doing really well. I was down to like the 180 one or the high 180s, low 190
Mhm.
range. So I gained it all back, but um
Well, don't
yeah,
worry, Sarah. I'm
that's
right on your heels. Only I'm
eating
in a lot
so
worse
much.
shape than you.
Dude, though, eating that amount of sugar, it's like, and even the carbs, because it takes so much for the body to break down. It's like, ugh.
Hmm.
And what was it yesterday? Oh, yesterday I ate two cookies because I forgot to take my vitamin D and B with my meal because you don't want to take it without. So I had to eat something, and cookies was the only thing. And afterwards, I'm like I felt like sluggish just from eating
Hmm.
that. Like throughout the rest of the day, I was feeling great.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. Like the only time I don't like, even when I do eat carbs, but I don't have that crash, is like after eating like mac and cheese. Like mac and cheese is the only thing I can really eat, and it's like I don't have that feeling like when I eat carbs and sugar. But dude, when you just radically change it and you say like push through, like sometimes the workouts were just like, uh, and you get through it and you're like, oh, thank God, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
And then the food, it's like, once the body clears itself out from all the crap that you've been eating, dude, you feel so much better. Like your energy level goes up. And I'm kind of with you. Like right now I'm doing all the YouTube videos and trying to learn new things. So creating a cartoon style esque stuff, and just kind of going around with that. And so I'm trying to learn new things and evolve the whole process and look at new ways of doing things, and maybe more the right way, I guess, of doing things, or another knowledge or know-how. But I'm also sitting as well too, and usually have this light on, the lights behind me, the side light. So I'm being blasted with all this light, which can take, but it's like, I don't feel too bad like working on the computer. I don't like doing all this stuff. Maybe it's interesting, so it keeps you motivated or going in that, versus what you do.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if that can be a difference or part of it, but it's like, dude, once you start, like if you you radically change your diet and you just push through, yeah, it's going to suck the first like week or two, but
The diet doesn't suck, it's the exercise. But what I've been trying to do is, like, on Saturday I went for a hike, and I keep forgetting to at least try to like walk or something, because the weirdest thing happened to me. I had just moved. The place that I moved into, I ordered a couch that wouldn't fit up the stairs, so I had to find something. I don't have a couch, and then the pandemic happened, right? So I have a gym mat that I lay on, like, on the in my living room. I have pillows that I lay on the floor, right? Well, then I've been getting so little exercise sitting all day, and I'm just laying on the floor if I want to like watch a movie or something, that I feel like an astronaut coming back to Earth from space, maybe, or something. My legs don't seem to be working right, and I feel dizzy and weird, like if I was out to sea for a long time and then I came back on shore. I was having trouble like walking, like literally walking. Like this feels weird and I feel dizzy. And I don't know if it's because I've been like laying on a hard surface for 8 hours a day, or like,
I'm going to say it's probably a lot to do with diet
it's
and
everything.
just the
It's
fact that
diet,
you've
no
been literally
exercise.
sitting and not doing a damn thing
Yeah,
for
exactly.
2 fucking months.
So weird. So then I've been trying to well, like at least go out and walk. And then Saturday I went hiking. But the other thing that's weird for me, I want to see what you think. Because you eat a lot of eggs every
Hmm.
day, right? You eat eggs
6 a
every day.
day,
Okay.
3 whole eggs and 3 egg whites for a
Well,
total of
Saturday
6. Yeah.
morning, I've been cooking myself scrambled eggs every Saturday morning. And I found that after I eat the scrambled eggs for breakfast, I feel extremely tired. And then I want to go back to sleep and take a nap. I don't know why. Is that weird? Like, should I eliminate eggs out of my diet? Really
Um,
weird.
is it only in scrambled, or is it anytime you eat
I
eggs?
don't know. You know what? You know what? I'll do eggs over easy next time and see if that
Try
has the same effect.
No, try actually go hard boiled,
Okay.
because you can at least separate the whites and the yolks. Because you could do it where you just do the egg whites. You could do the whole egg. Um,
Cool. I'll do some
I mean, you
elimination
could be
experimentation.
allergic,
I don't.
but chances are it probably not.
Yeah. I don't.
But it's still a possibility. And I mean, what else are you eating besides eggs?
Well, the past couple
Or
weeks
what
I've
are
been
you
having
putting in with the
sausage.
eggs?
I cooked the eggs with olive oil and just like a teaspoon of olive oil for lubrication.
Do
And I've been eating
you
sausage. But yesterday I forgot that I didn't have any eggs, or Saturday. Wait, yeah, it's Sunday. Okay, yesterday I forgot I didn't have any eggs, and I cooked sausage, and then I'm like, oh, I forgot I broke all my eggs. So um, I didn't have the eggs, and then I didn't feel tired after I ate the sausage. Then this morning I still had some sausage, and I went to the store and bought eggs. As soon as I ate the eggs and sausage, I felt tired. So I
hmm.
don't know whether it's the scrambled, and it just seems weird to me that
Well, it
like
could, I
eggs
mean,
would
it could be
cause
the
that.
yolk itself,
Weird.
and because it is, I mean, the other question though is like, I mean, yesterday when you wake up, it was sunny out.
Yeah.
So whenever it's sunnier out, you always have an easier time of getting up. Um, at least in my
Oh yeah,
experience.
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Um, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
like I
it's weird.
said, you
I'll
could,
experiment. To be continued.
yeah, I would say I would test a few different things. I would say try going hard boiled, eat the whole egg for like the next couple of days. Make sure you're getting the proper amount of sleep. That's the big thing.
Oh, that's crucial for
Um,
me. I have to.
yeah, make sure you're getting the proper amount of sleep. So when you wake up, you're rested. Um, and when do you last eat at night?
I you're supposed to allegedly not eat like 3 hours before I go to bed.
Yeah, that's not what I'm
But
asking. I'm asking what
yeah,
you're
no,
doing.
I have completely fallen off. Like,
So that can also be playing effect into
yeah, I
it too,
wonder.
whatever you're eating before, because your body, because you're eating, could potentially be keeping you up longer, even though you might be sleeping. You're not getting
Hmm.
your full circadian rhythm.
Yeah, for sure.
So that could actually be playing into an effect. So I would say, first of all, don't eat anything. Yeah. Honestly, if you could do intermittent fasting, like 16/8,
I'm gonna try it.
do that.
Yeah, I'll try
So
it.
if you can eat, say 10 a.m., finish by 6 p.m. Like your dinner's by
Yeah.
6, and you won't eat. Obvious. I mean, if you don't go to sleep till 11, 12, 1 at night, you got plenty of time. So do that first. Make sure you do that. So when you go to sleep, you go to sleep. And then yeah, try the whole eggs. Um, then see what happens. Do that for like 2, 3 days. Then do egg whites only. See if there's any difference there. And if you eat the egg hard boiled and you feel fine, then
Yeah, we'll
try
find
doing
out.
scrambled next and see if it was just
Now,
uh
when you hard boil your eggs, I found out a pretty interesting trick that I didn't know. Um, to get rid of like the green film that is like sulfur that builds up around the actual yolk of the egg. Once you hard boil and then you got to cool them down real quick.
yeah,
Have you done that? Because
that's
I
what I always
noticed that.
do.
Yeah, I didn't know that, and I was making like, and it does make a difference. You get a much more like yellow, solid,
Mhm.
better tasting inner yolk with that. Like if you're gonna make
So
you
this,
know,
I'll just give you right now. This is actually pretty much all the time because my schedule is mine. That's the one thing about being self-employed. That's nice. So whether we're in pandemic or not, when I wake up, um, I do a protein shake, just one scoop, 8 ounces of water, um, get the protein shake going. Then I take an energy drink, which is a Celsius. It's 200 milligrams caffeine, no sugar, none of that crap. It's got green tea extract, really good energy drink. I like them. Um, then do my workout. Then I take another protein shake, scoop, and 8 ounces of water. Then I start cardio. But during that time, I let my eggs cook. So what I do is I just literally put my 6 eggs into the pan, fill it up with water, turn it on, 20 minutes. I come back. Like I said, I do 30-minute cardio, but I do it for 20 minutes. Once I hit the 10-minute left on the elliptical, I get off, take a break, grab some water, and then I turn the eggs off. Right away, I go dump out the hot water, turn on cold water, fill it up once, pour it out, fill it up again for the second time, go right back to the elliptical, do the cardio, the finish out the 10 minutes, and then go and eat the eggs right away. So I eat the eggs. They're cool. They're still warm, but they're not hot. They're cooler, so you can eat them perfectly fine. You never have that issue. The shell comes off much easier, at
hmm
least in that point too. And then that film from the shell to the egg itself, that
yeah,
fucking nasty ass shit,
yeah,
that comes off usually really well too, unless the egg is just a temperamental piece of shit and I want to
yeah.
throw it out. But um, I do that. Then I take a multivitamin and an apple. And so like, try doing that. If you're
Okay.
going to eat your eggs first, like quicker, then what, like if I wasn't doing cardio or something and I wanted to eat my eggs, again, just do that. I just do 20 minutes. It's literally fill up the water from the
Hmm.
tap, throw it right on the stove, turn it on high, 20 minutes. Um, Whatever it is, it heats it up to a boil about 10, 11 minutes in. It boils it out. Um, Perfectly good.
Yeah,
But
that's a
if
good
you want
method.
to eat them right away, dump out the water, fill it up cold, dump out the water, fill it up cold, dump out the water, fill it up cold. So you do it 3 times at that point, and then let it sit for about a minute or two. And usually at that point, it will cool down even the internal yolk pretty good when you let it sit for about 2 minutes or so. And then that way you can eat the eggs much quicker. But because I am still doing cardio for 10
Oh
minutes,
yeah.
that's why I only do it twice to refill up with that cold water. But yeah, cold water bath that shit right away. So much better to get the eggs. So much
Awesome.
better.
All right, you ready to pivot? I got something that Joe Rogan said the other day that I that I thought was pretty funny.
Hmm.
You know I love comedy. Well, I realized I love inadvertent comedy. So I think it was on Tony Hinchcliffe. Joe Rogan was talking about how they have a list of things that you can and can't do in California, which is pretty funny.
You can walk the beach, but you can't sit.
Yeah, don't sit. Or the stupidest one was fishing. You could go fishing, but you can't sit in a chair. What? What do you? What? That's stupid.
Like
But
that,
then they were
yeah.
talking about how you could go crabbing, and Tony Hinchcliffe was like crabbing, and Joe Rogan's like, "Oh yeah, there's a ton of places to catch crabs around San Francisco." It's like, I'm sure there is, Joe Rogan. I'm sure there's a ton of places
I
to
mean, you
catch
could probably
crabs
go into a
around.
couple of those districts there,
Yeah,
like the red light district. You
yeah,
probably are going to
yeah.
get.
I love inadvertent comedy, and he just said it like so nonchalantly, and it just was hilarious. So good one, Joe Rogan. I'm sure there's a lot of places to catch crabs around San Francisco. Thank you very much. Pretty funny.
Oh
And
yeah, no,
what else
it's
was I going to bring up? I
that
forgot.
list is. I saw that and I looked it up because I'm like, you're kidding me, right?
Hmm.
Like you're telling me I can go out and walk, but I can't bike. Like
Yeah.
what? Fuck
What?
off.
It doesn't make
Like
any sense.
why can't you go and ride a bike?
I don't
Like
get it.
there was a picture that somebody posted on Facebook that I saw, and it was like this trail is closed to bicycles, but you can walk it.
That's so weird. I don't get it. Like, oh, I remember what I wanted.
What?
So first I owe you an apology, sir, because the last podcast that we had after that, after we were not recording any longer, well, here's what had happened was, what if, and this is what I've been thinking about the past 2 weeks. I had talked a lot about how I love the truth, facts, right? Because I'm
Did you
replacing that with
realize that the
science.
facts and the truth changed?
Well, no, that's well, okay. So not only,
It's just because new evidence came forward,
well,
right?
no. So here's even worse than that. What if everything that I have been taught and learning ever since this thing came out, I always had faith in scientists, the people, because I know what they do. I know they're not just making shit up, right? There's a that's what like actual
Well,
scientists. Yeah,
some can argue that some things are made up for the benefit of certain companies
that's
because of the
cognitive
money behind
bias.
them.
Yes,
That is
that's
very
cognitive
true.
bias
But the problem is that does happen and it happens
all the
too
time.
often and it's
Yeah,
not peer reviewed.
right.
And that is the biggest problem
Well, that's my
when it
whole
comes
thing.
to it.
So after our conversation, the past 2 weeks, I'm like, what if everything that I've been reading, everything that I've looked into, all of the data that's been presented to me is not real? What if it is all fake? And the things that I've been taking as um, facts, because I do believe scientists, what if it's not real? Or what if they're going on bad information? So now everything that I was like really 100% about, like things you would ask me
It shook your core.
just completely. Now I don't know what to believe.
Aaron,
Oh,
welcome to my simulation.
it's definitely Well, I'm still on the fence whether it's my simulation or
Oh,
our
it's totally mine.
simulation.
And again, you can get, if you'd like to get the I'm not a bot in your simulation t-shirt, you could get it in the link in the description below. Just follow that link.
See, Chris tries to convince me that it's not my simulation by telling me that it's his simulation. That's
'Cause
how
it
you would
is.
convince someone that it's not their simulation, is by telling them that it's their simulation. He's trying to trick me, but it's still my simulation.
All
But
right,
yeah, man.
Aaron. So I gotta say, apology accepted.
Okay. Good.
And I also have to say, welcome to exactly what I was trying to do. And that was to make, or not to make, but to help guide you to start questioning things in terms of trying to look at it from just different angles and different anchor points, because you could be told one thing one way and that information could be true, but there is also the possibility that there are other things that are true.
Yeah.
And I brought this up when I was talking about how we're trying to understand everything, and it's like we understand 1% of 1%
Mhm.
of the total known knowledge that this universe has to
Yeah.
offer. And that statistic could be absolutely made up, but that's what some
Even we
brightest
know
minds
nothing.
of the world think
We know
about.
nothing for sure.
Exactly. And what's funny is I always said, like, we could be walking in a maze where we think we're getting somewhere, and we think that all of our formulas and all of our data points and all of our substance and all of our trials and tribulations and everything leads this one way. And then we get to a point and either we hit a wall and there's no more further we can go, or something cracks that entire thing and everything we thought
Mhm.
was not real, even though there was so much backing it up.
Right.
And that's the whole thing about science, is one of the things about science that I really enjoy is the fact that science tries to disprove itself all of the
Oh,
time,
it's
and that's
great.
the point.
Yeah.
And so that also brings in the point of questioning everything. And one of the big things is Einstein. You can bring in Einstein and his theory of relativity, and all of the scientists that have tried to back him up really have been trying to prove him wrong
Mhm.
this entire time. It's just that every test that they've done ended up confirming what he had
Right.
said from the beginning. And that's the big thing. Like, okay, he may have been onto something, but again, we could have been going down the maze, taking the wrong turns.
Mhm.
That what those experiments do is back that up, but we realize maybe we hit a wall, and now we go back and realize that the right way to go is an opposite way, where we thought one thing one way at one time, and then all of a sudden we have to shift our perspective.
Mhm.
And that's all it is. It's not like, and I mean, the biggest thing is to say, like, we need to learn how to question things and formulate our own hypotheses based on the information that we've been provided. And yes, the problem, especially with this whole thing that's going on, is you can see scientists, you can see doctors, you can see politicians, you can see lay people, you can see frontline nurses, you can see front end grocery stores, you can see all of these people coming up and saying their own 2 cents or their own thoughts on, maybe on true data, maybe on fake data, maybe on data that they believed was true but ended up being falsified in some way or wasn't the correct type of data to be collected. And the issue with this is because it was so radically in changing our entire life and our entire world, and just everything about
Mhm.
everything we knew tipped it upside down. You had 360 degrees of information that you could use confirmation bias to confirm your thoughts and hypotheses by saying, well, I found this, this, and this. and this came from this, this, and this. But then you could find out later that that might not
That's
really
exactly
be
what I'm
exactly.
experiencing right now. So, I didn't want to. I know everyone's had enough of the coronavirus talk, so I'm not going to get into it. Which I do want
So
to address this though,
let me hold, sorry,
not
and
this
let
episode, but another time.
yeah, well, I want to. I'll apologize for something as well too. When I said I don't want to talk about it anymore, it was I should have explained it myself better on why I didn't want to talk about it, and it was because at that point, like I said, that was where I was still eating the sugar. That was where I was still eating the
Okay.
crap.
Yeah.
So my mind being bombarded by this over here and over here and over here and over here, and it's like I was burnt out from that,
Oh,
and it
I
was just
totally
like
get it.
I knew that's where part of the conversation was going to go. And I set enough energy to be able to go through that as best as I could. And once I hit that wall where I'm like, I can't do it anymore, that's why I'm like, dude, I can't talk about it anymore. I have to stop because it was just me burnt out from hearing about
I
it, from
totally get
talking
it,
about it
man.
with other people. And
Yep.
then I was just feeling run down because of what's going on,
Yeah, for sure.
with not eating properly or like I said, I was already working out at that point. I was feeling good, but I was still eating crappy and I wasn't doing cardio. So like cardiovascular was like,
Well, also, man, this stuff is my jam. Like I love biology. I love the way nature works. But
mhm.
if you're not interested in, I realized this the other day, like I'll talk all day about chemical reactions, chemistry, the atomic weight of hydrogen, like stuff like that. I love it.
See,
And if
I
you don't
like,
like that sort of thing,
I don't like to me, I don't care about the technical
yeah,
aspects of it. I do what was, oh my God, who's the person that I sent you the video of with the maze?
that guy was really cool. That stuff
Um,
was really cool. I'd have to look it up, but
It's
that was
not
a
the
really,
not backyard scientist. It's oh my god. I can't I gotta look it up right now because I
plus the
can't
comment
remember.
that I sent back on that, I will pat myself on the back. That was a pretty good one. Where I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
That's such a good one.
Hold on, I'll tell you what it's oh my god, it's not the backyard scientist. It's oh, it's the action lab.
Yeah. So cool. I
So
love that
what
stuff, man. It's
that
so cool.
that's what interests me as well. I like to see the reactions. I like to see what things do when they're exposed in certain ways and beings and
Yeah.
things like that. And the technicality behind it, I like the simpler explanations. I don't give a fuck about anything more because uh, I'll use the same exact thing that Joe Rogan says is
Yeah.
that we have so
Bandwidth.
much bandwidth
Yep.
and like we're already pretty much bombarded with so much shit already, and it's like I like to see what happens. I like to know what happens because it's very interesting if you need to
Hmm.
know it down the road or something like that, or useful information or unuseful information, whatever you want to say. And I like the little bit of knowledge behind it. I don't need to go so far in depth where it's
Right.
like, well, this is the reason, blah 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 blah, and like, because at that point it's just like that's something that gets to the point where it's like I'll never ever use that because that's not where I'm like my path leads through.
Right. For sure. That
So
makes
like
perfect
and
sense.
it's the bandwidth, and I get it. Like there's things I'll talk about the same thing where you don't have any interest in either. And I think the good thing is we have so many similarity
Oh, for
interests
sure.
that we've had good thoughts about and good discussions about. It's just that like like when you get so adamant about one thing and it's like, dude, just take a step back, peel
Right.
back the onion a little bit, check out a different layer. And I mean that at that aspect it's like, all right, let's break it down a little bit further. I like the fact where we can converse and the ability to go back and forth. But yeah, when it hits this wall of literal communication stoppage, that's
Hmm.
where it's like, all right, I'm done with the
For
conversation,
sure.
and it's time to end because at that point it's one fist coming this way, the other fist
Yeah,
coming
for
this
sure.
way, and they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So we gotta make sure that when that happens to put the egos aside
For sure.
and say, all right, we either got to finish this and walk away and come back later, or we do something different.
Well,
And
plus
so,
the thing that is, I realized by listening to Dr. Rhonda, I've watched her before.
mhm,
The first couple podcasts, she did a very good job of explaining her thought process fully in a linear fashion. So when she had an idea that she was trying to explain or a concept, she started at the beginning, went the whole way through it, and explained it in a linear fashion. This last one, the one thing was that she kept getting ahead of herself, and she wasn't fully explaining her thought process, and she
mhm,
kept skipping around. And I could tell that she might have been like either trying to explain too many things at once coming out of her brain. I do the same thing, and I'm like, oh my goodness, Dr. Rhonda, I'm like, you're having the same issue that I have all the time. Is so many things are going in my head, and I'm visualizing so many things that when I try to explain it, the next thought comes in and I switch to that, and I'm not completely forming I'm not talking the whole way through what I want to explain. So here's what happened with the coronavirus. You had asked me if what the percentage of, or whether I thought that the coronavirus was made in a lab, right? And I was
mhm.
like 90%
No,
no, and
no, no. I asked you.
10%
No, no, no. I asked you if it came from the lab.
came from a lab. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't
That's a good distinction.
yeah, because
And I was like,
being made and come from are two completely different
there
things.
definitely are. So at the time, again, I had been getting all of these reports from published scientists, and you know the peer review things. You publish your research, and then people can look at it and pick it apart and say, yes, I can replicate this. I agree. That's peer review. That's how science
Mhm,
works, right? And apparently, these people were publishing these papers that were saying that um, we believe that this came from nature, and here's why. And from what I know about genetics and biology, when you do something like a DNA test, there's a method that they use, which is very interesting to me, of how they break apart DNA into segments, and then they can trace those segments to do your DNA to find out whether you're not the father. That's what I assumed that they did with this virus. The people were looking at it, doing the virology, and comparing it with other viruses to see where it came from. And I took that as good faith because that's what science is. So when these people were saying, we believe that this jumped from animals to humans and that it was not made in a lab or didn't come from a lab, because it is two different things, I took them at face value because I trusted my fellow scientists. Well, now I've been getting conflicting information that is showing me that maybe it it wasn't made in a lab, but maybe there was some modification that happened, and nobody really knows. So then that's what caused my whole world to collapse. We're like, has everything that I've been reading all been not a lie, but has it been what you said? What's the word that you said? Biased? Confirmation
confirmation
bias?
biased. Yeah.
I think that this came from an animal. When I do these experiments, the results that I display are going to back up my theory. That's a human bias.
Mhm.
Is that what is happening with the information that I've been given? So now I'm 50-50. I don't know. But the other thing is, there was an argument with a guy named Ken Ham, who is a creationist, who's trying to defend his argument that the Noah's Ark theory, and that the world is only either 6,000 or 2,000 years old. And he was debating another scientist. I can't remember who it was. But Ken Ham's argument was that, well, we weren't there 2,000 years ago. So this could have all been created since we've been alive. And it's a really good argument. We don't
Well,
know.
it's like the
So
simulation, like,
exactly.
and it's like, well, the other thing is we go to sleep and then we wake up, but are we really waking up?
That's
Or are
exactly
we only,
right.
because like, and that's the whole thing. Like, even for what's crazy about it is like, there's so many plausibilities out there in terms of theories that says, oh, there could be the multiverse. Oh, there could be the Big Bang Theory. Oh, there could be a simulation. Those are all so completely different in terms of how this entire universe is. Like if there's a multiverse, does that mean that it's an infinite verse? Does that mean there's parallel universes within? It brings up so many different avenues to go through and go down. And it's like, you can pick one or the other, or I mean, you could pick one or several or whatever it might be, or you pick one out of the several. There we go. You could pick one out of the several theories and say, well, this is what mainstream science believes. And again, we could be going down that maze, hitting a wall, and then realizing, oh, well, maybe if we just woke up from the Matrix, we would know the truth.
Right.
But but the thing is, it's like, just that alone shows you great minds think differently, and you can't really prove right or wrong for both, because the information that's there may not be able to ever be tested, or we don't know how to test it yet. So we can't dismiss nor confirm either of those options. And so we have to question, well, what do we think we would like better? And that comes down to just our own being and our own thought process, and questioning what is told to you. And questioning, that's the whole thing. Questioning authority is a big thing. Like the politicians that are out there talking about this whole thing today are not going in line with what scientists are actually saying anymore. And then there's other scientists that are confirmationally biased towards these politicians because they're getting paid by these politicians, or however it's working out. So there's a lot of things behind the scenes that are swaying opinions and swaying thoughts, and that in turn can truly change how every single person is looking at something. And so I'm not saying, like, don't question your being or the fabric that makes you up, but question its validity. Like, if you're a scientist, check it yourself.
Right.
Or pick it apart yourself.
That's exactly my thing.
And
so with this
instead
virus,
of taking it at face value, because that's the whole thing. Like when it comes to trying to figure it out, we probably won't know.
Well, that's
we won't
my
know
whole
it
thing.
because China won't give out that information.
Well, that's
and
what's
if
happening.
They have that information, they probably already got rid of it.
I'm glad you brought that up. So here's my thing. I trust scientists because I know what they do, right? So again, with the DNA testing, you can take the virus, a sample of the virus from where you get it. That's how they know the difference between a virus that mutated in Europe and the virus that is in New York City that is causing
it's
someone
from Europe,
to have it.
And
it came through Europe, but the way that they trace that is by mutations, right?
Yeah.
So we can get a lot into how.
I mean, I don't think we want to get into the nitty-gritty, but
so
at least the basics.
I took those scientists at face value when they said that I know that they can look at the virus, check out its genetic makeup, and the codons and things like that of how it is actually made. And when the scientists said, look, we looked at this thing, we can trace it back to samples that we have from other animals in the wild, and we don't think that it came from a lab, and we think it jumped from an animal into a human, right? I took them at face value. However, because I myself did not do those experiments where I looked under the microscope myself, and I did it myself, where I compared two different samples from a known sample in the wild and the virus that's out there. I have no way of confirming what these people are telling me is true, because now new evidence has come to light for me, and I don't know if it's true or not, questioning little segments of this virus that may not have come from genetic mutations, that may have been modified. So then when these scientists that say, look, we looked at this thing and we think that it came from from nature, when they're questioned, well, where did this little segment, where did this little codon come from? they just ignore it. And they're like, well, they don't answer the question. Well,
Mhm.
that's not how genetic mutation works. When you get a genetic mutation, a little part of it changes naturally, because an enzyme is copying the RNA, sometimes mistakes are made, and that's how you get a mutation. But when a whole chunk of it is different, that's not a mutation. Someone has to add that into there. Now, I've never seen this strain in the microscope myself, so I don't know whether this chunk exists or not that could
Mhm.
be modified. But now I have to question, well, because I didn't see it with my own two eyes and I didn't do the actual experiments, can I believe anything that anybody is saying?
Uh, the an-
Nothing.
the
My
answer
whole
is
world is shattered.
the answer is legitimately no. You can't.
No, no,
Because
you really
the
can't.
the thing the easiest thing I can compare it to is Schrodinger's cat. You know that experiment, right?
Yep, for sure. Is the cat
So
alive or dead? It's
yeah, and,
probably both.
exactly. But let's go over what it is for people who may not know what Schrodinger's cat is. So
You explain
Dr.
that, and I'm
Schro
going to go use the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Okay.
All
So
right.
Dr. Schrodinger is I don't even know when it was. I think it was in the 1800s, maybe. Don't quote me on the year. It's not really important. But one of the tests was saying you put a cat in a box with a vial of poison, and then you have a timer that once it hits 0, you the vial breaks, the poison is released, and the cat being in this sealed box should perish. And so the question becomes, well, is the cat dead or alive after the vial is broken? And because there was no actual observation made, we don't know. And that means the cat is both dead and alive. So you have this very strange thing going on, because it's talking about it being both dead and alive, when in fact you could probably infer that when the vial breaks it would be dead and it would be poisoned. But again, because nobody has actually taken the time to truly look at it and figure it out, because there was no observation made, you can't clearly say that the cat is dead. And that goes kind of similar to what doctors do when they pronounce people dead. They're the ones who have to be able to do that, and they have to make the observation. Um, you can have other people kind of say it, but it doesn't mean anything until that. And it also brings up, like, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there to hear it, does it make a sound? And you can't really say if it makes a sound or not, because nothing is recording that sound being made. So you don't know. And that can go into the double slit experiment, that can go into observations on the slit experiment, and it just opens up this whole can of worms on what could be true and what could be not true. And it could all be true and it could all be not true until an actual observation is truly made. And I think because one of the other issues too, when we're talking about the virus, and maybe it came from the wet market, or a cave nearby or something, or maybe it did come from the uh, Wuhan lab, and that answer will likely be that we will probably never know the truth to that. But the thing is that whether it came from a lab, whether it came from nature naturally, and whether it came from the lab naturally, or if it has been modified. And that's, see, for me, when I was asking that question, I wasn't asking if it was modified in a lab. And I was just asking if you think that it was in the lab being worked on, something happened in the lab, whether they sold it to the wet market and it got out that way, or whether something got onto somebody and it was a huge problem that maybe China wanted to cover up. The World Health Organization, their credibility for a lot of people have been shot, because they're in bed with China, and it shows over the several posts that they made, and some of the interviews that have been shown on throughout the media and that, where they're asking a question and he just doesn't answer it and goes to the next. And it's like, well, that's a pretty good question. Why aren't you answering it?
Right.
And if you could even just simply say, we don't know at this time, that would have been a much better answer than just ignoring it and creating this cloud of confusion. And just showing that who definitely is in bed with China really could just like the way everything's set up and the way things have come about, it really just makes you question things.
Hmm.
Like whether it could, and even if you question the official story, that's the whole thing. Like even JFK, like if you want to get into a conspiracy, talk about JFK and the conspiracy behind all of that. And they talk about the magic bullet, and they talk about the bullet fragments being found elsewhere, and just a lot of different things. And it's like, all right, hold on. Here's the official story.
Right.
Here's some other information. Because the official story doesn't include that information, it changes the entire thing. And that's the whole thing when it comes down to this, because there's so much information that's being released in any different angle, and there's so much information that's lost or not being released or not known. The all of it's kind of up in the air. And like I said, for me, I wasn't questioning the virus. I know it's there. I'm not saying that is false. I know people who are
Hey, man.
on desperate need of
After our last
prayers and care.
conversation, I'm like, is this even real? Like, I'm seeing things on the news, but maybe the news is lying to me. Maybe there isn't 80,000 people who've died. Like, I don't know anyone personally. I haven't
What's
seen.
your thoughts on the UN Agenda 2030?
I don't know.
UN Agenda 20.
What is
20,
that?
no. Agenda 20. Yeah. What's your thoughts on Agenda 20 by the
What is
UN?
that? What is that? I don't know what it is.
You got to look it up.
I
I can't go over it. It'll take way too long. Essentially, I'll try to give it in its like shortest terms possible, but it won't do it justice. You actually have to go and read it. Agenda 2030 is a UN initiative to try to create a more green, sustainable planet.
Okay.
So they're talking about doing a lot of things in terms of population, in terms of pollution, in terms of this, that, and the other thing. And so if you want to get into the conspiracy side of things, it's talking about population control, getting people on a like fully vaccinated, getting people not to question authority, essentially getting rid of or going to one world government, going to this, that, and the other thing. So you'd have to read it in full and make your own decisions from it. But
Sure.
there is then I would suggest going down the rabbit hole a little bit and actually seeing what some conspiracy theories are putting behind it, because it is very interesting to see how people are interpreting it. And then this was made in 2015, and it had a 15-year initiative cycle on it. And then by 2030 is when Agenda 2030 is supposed to be starting, which is the second addendum to that.
Okay.
Or I don't know if it would be addendum or if it would be, but it would be the next phase, you could say, of it. So they're saying like at first the conspiracy was, oh, this is a test phase to see how people would react and what people would do in terms of getting people in under a one world government type thing. So it brings this whole conspiracy to it. And but there could even be the whole thing, China did that on purpose and said that they already have 1 billion people. Trying to feed and take care of 1 billion people is insane.
Yep.
So they're like, oh, well, we'll let it go out a little bit and get it out to the rest of the world because, well, we don't like Donald Trump because there's this trade war and we want to be number one in the world. We want to own the world. And the U.S. is like, well, we want to continue owning the world. So we have this mentality where we don't want to back down and they don't want to back down. So it creates this hardship. And so it's like, well, what if they do something like that and they're like, well, we'll inflict it on our own people, and we can, we do certain things differently here, and they're okay with that. Like being the people. And so once it gets to the rest of the world, it gets to the rest of the world, and however they deal with it is how they deal with it. And it's like, I always say, follow the money, follow the money trail, because science, again, whether it's, and at this point it's crap science, but people will believe it because it comes from an authoritative figure with the backing and credentials of saying, I'm a scientist in this field.
That's what I thought. Virologists said this is not possible. And then I come to find out that it could be possible. And how am I supposed to know? Because I'm not looking at it myself. And all of a sudden, when these people are confronted with legitimate questions, exactly what you said, they ignore it or mock the person asking the question. I'm like, this person asked you a legitimate, normal question as a layperson, and defend your position. Explain why they're wrong. Don't just make fun of them. And that's what happened. Like, and then they lost all credibility to me. And that's not what science is.
No, it's not. But so here's the problem with science itself.
Because they're human. Scientists are human.
That is true. But when you put out a theory, you have a theory in mind, and you want that theory to be correct.
Yep.
So you're going to try to do tests to make it correct and to back up your hypothesis because of our thing called ego. So we want to make our ego, we want to stroke it a little bit, make it feel good. And so if a test or a study or a conclusion comes out to back that hypothesis up, and it could be made on shit science, it could be real science, whatever it is, but a lot of the problem is they're not getting peer reviewed in terms of replicating the same exact experiment because the funding isn't there. There's only funding for so much scientific research to be done. And that's a big problem there when it comes down to it, because there's so much stuff that's being put out there in terms of what theories we're putting out there, or what we think is true, or what, talking about gravitational pull on a neutron star, and having them crash together with the gravitational waves that we've detected, and blah 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 blah, whatever it might be, it doesn't really matter. But that was backed up very quickly when it comes to the gravitational waves, because there were multiple people looking at it, and then they were confirming that with other people because they put that study out and wanted it reviewed before they actually published it, so they could include that being to be true. Plus, it was so big and so much that there were multiple people that had to back it up or to try to disprove it. And that's probably what some people were trying to do, is disprove it. But when you have studies on how sugar reacts over fat in the body during the coronary study of what was it, in the 80s or something, and they said sugar good, fat bad, and realized that panel had been made up of a sugar industry and a lobbyist position to make it look like sugar is perfectly okay, while the fats that naturally occur in foods are the bad thing. Yeah. And again, that's shit science, but that went unattested because there was no funding to back it up until people decided to start looking at things in a different aspect, where they were getting funding to back up their claims and their thoughts and their findings. And then they realized, oh, sugar is actually bad. Fats are not that bad. That study has been thrown out now because it's shit science.
Yep.
And unfortunately, because just the realm of money and how much its influence is over the world, coupled with ego, you have to question the sources all of the time and see where it's coming from, and then ask yourself, all right, well, where is it peer reviewed and who peer reviewed it? Is it peer reviewed by the same committee, just with a different aspect of people? Or is it actually done by a completely different organization that has no ties to that whatsoever, to where it's an actual true peer review? Or is it just confirmation bias to confirm what we put out earlier because we're getting a little cutback?
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. Like, you got to, we have to do our due diligence. We have to exhaust all options, coming from authoritative figures,
Mm-hmm.
coming from the cuckoo bird down the road. I mean, obviously one's definitely going to be right over the other, but you, within the realm, they always say two true, or between, what was it with between an argument or something, the truth lies. There's like each side, is a kernel of truth, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. So it's you can have one person saying one thing, another person saying another thing, and other people have to try to figure it out. And that goes to the same thing with, judge and jury. If you do a crime, the state or the federal government or whoever's trying to convict you of that crime has to do it in a way where they have to have so much evidence that it's beyond a shadow of a doubt when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to a criminal case, because they're trying to make sure that the person who is tried actually did it. So beyond a shadow of a doubt. Now, the defense, all they have to do is create a shadow of doubt, and that person may have done it, but if they find that doubt,
Yep.
that can change,
For sure.
and that person could go free. And
Yeah,
that
it could have been
you could
Colonel
go to the,
Mustard with the candlestick in the living room instead of
yeah,
this
and
person.
that brings up the whole thing when it comes to the O.J. Simpson case.
Mm-hmm.
Did
Oh
he really
man.
do it or not? And all the evidence points that he did, but the jury found him innocent, or found him not guilty. I forgot. You can't say innocent, but found him not guilty because he had a very good lawyer and lawyer team that created and casted doubt in the minds of the jurors to say, we don't think he did it. And that's why he lost the civil case, because you only have to show a burden of proof.
Right, for sure.
So when it comes to criminal, and so that's the mentality that I like to have, is I like to look at things with open minds, with an open mind, and see, does this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And everything I've been led to believe or thought, I don't want to be married to, because as new information, and this is probably the scientist in me, where and the lack of ego. I've checked my ego in many ways. I still have an ego. We all do. It's a fault that we have, but I've checked it to the point where if I'm proven wrong based on new information, I don't want to be the asshole. And I'm not saying it, don't take this towards you. This is something internal, and just because of our conversation,
Right.
I don't want you to think that,
No, I get it.
because I want to make sure I'm clear when I'm saying that. So I don't want to be the asshole that says all of this information and then come out and find out new information and be like, oh, well, I completely changed my stance on everything from.
Well, that's what I'm
before.
doing right now.
No, I get that. I get that. Your question, it's the realm of questionability, or you're questioning, and it's the realm of possibilities now for you. And like I said, I don't want you to lose the fabric of yourself or what makes you you.
I don't.
Just,
And here's the thing with that. Let's just say that from the jump, because I've been saying the same thing from the jump. This thing has a high death rate. I believe the scientists, and they're right. They are right in that aspect. And you don't have to be an idiot to figure that out. You just have to look at dead bodies. Like, well, okay, we got all these people who are dying. This is serious. Okay, good. Then what are we going to do about it is a whole other argument, which is why we're in this. But from the jump, I'm like, no matter what anybody says, at least we know that this is serious. There's a lot of people dying, and you can't deny that, right? But if I would have come out from the jump and said that 5G is is causing this virus, and that's why all these people are dying, it's because of the 5G, and I know it, and I know it, and I know it. Well, if someone would have presented me with new evidence that says, no, Aaron, there isn't even any such thing as a 5G. when people are a lot of people, I don't want to say most, but when some people are presented with new evidence that shows that their idea that they were clinging onto for so long might have been wrong, they take it as a personal attack on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Where you
And
were
they
wrong.
double down.
Yeah, that's not me. I'm not offended when I'm proven wrong. I take it as a learning experience, and I'm happy for that person. Oh, you learned something more than what I knew? Good for you. That's an awesome job, and I was wrong. But that takes years and years of looking deeply at myself and realizing that just because I'm wrong about something that I said in the past, or there's new evidence, or I was just completely wrong, it's not a personal attack on me as a person. My ideas and thoughts are not me as a person.
Well, like I
A lot of
said,
people
that's
don't
the
know
ego.
that. Yeah, that's exactly.
That's the ego
Right.
check.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the biggest problems that people face when it comes to it.
Yep.
But I don't know. When I was young when I learned to question everything. And so like when I was told certain things when I was going in school, I questioned those things to my teachers, and my teachers hated it because that's what they were teaching us.
Mm-hmm.
But when you find out the truth of things, they teach you an aspect of something and an avenue of something to get a point across, or to get, whatever you want to get out of it, however you want to teach it. They don't teach it always the right way. And me being me, liking, I do like a lot of information. I do like a lot of different things like that, where there's, I do like a lot of things with science. I do like a lot of things, but certain aspects I just don't care, and other aspects I find really cool. But when I find something on TV that is a documentary that has been researched and shown, and lots of changes are being presented, and that might be considered shaky ground or something like that, but that is more of the truth. And then I question my teachers that they would get pissed off, but yet then they would, the good teachers, not all teachers, but the good ones would either take the time to understand what I'm trying to question, or where I'm trying to present, so they can give a thoughtful feedback, whether it's correct or not. Some actually would ask me, okay, where are you getting this, or what did you see? Then they will go and look at that. And I've had them come back and say, you're right. Unfortunately, this is the curriculum that we have to teach. And because of that, these things are wrong. So when I see stuff like that, it then confirmed and validated it more to question things, because the official story of what you're being told, for whatever it might be, could be flawed, or could be lacking key information that maybe they don't know about, or maybe that they choose to ignore.
That's
and
exactly
so it's questioning things. And to me, I'm always interested in learning different angles and seeing different approaches from people, from the most amazing, fully capable answer you could possibly get, all the way to the craziest, out of the loop, loopy Looney Tune bin, and everything in between. Because to me, I also like how the human mind works. I like to see connections of things. I like to see how people connect the dots. And the crazy thing, like, it's shown when you say, look at the clouds and tell me what you see. Well, one person sees a dog, one person sees a boy, one person sees a plant, one person sees a cloud, one person sees water, or ice crystals, or whatever you want to say. So it's very unique in terms of what people think and how they come up with their answers. So that's why I like to look at all these different things.
And then for a person like me, I'm like, there is no cloud.
Well, no, now there's a cloud. Let's be real.
The whole thing. So to me, like,
it's
I'm
a
like,
contrail.
Yeah,
it's a contrail. We made it up, so the government put it up there.
with Lex Friedman, who's been on the Joe Rogan podcast, I watched one of his podcasts where he was at the Royal Institute interviewing a guy who works at the Large Hadron Collider.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy, I wish I knew his name. I can look it up. He did a great job explaining the different experiments that they're doing at the Large Hadron Collider, how the Large Hadron Collider works, what he does there. And me being like a science lover, I take those scientists at face value. So if you are a scientist who works at the Large Hadron Collider, or you're an engineer who
or
helped,
LHC for short.
yeah. If you're an engineer who helped build that, I believe you, right? And I listen to what they say. And if they do an experiment and they say, well, we have pretty good evidence that this indicates we found the Bose-Higgs boson, whatever you call it, right?
Higgs boson.
It's the Higgs boson? Okay.
Yep.
I believe them. Well, my fellow scientists have let me down when it comes to this stupid virus thing, because when they publish papers and they say, well, we think this came from nature and here's why, I believe them and I took them at face value, because just like the scientists who worked at the Large Hadron Collider, they're supposed to be experts in their field. And if they're publishing results, I believe that they have all of the advanced data. Well, now I've seen other evidence that makes me question all of these people who publish these papers that they say. Here's another example.
Are you talking about with the papers, or not the papers, the people that are coming out and saying that they never really did find the Higgs boson? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, that's okay. No, I'm talking about the actual coronavirus not escaping from the Wuhan lab.
When the hell did you make that jump? Because we were talking about the LHC.
Well, I'm using it as an example.
All of a sudden, right? You're like, wait.
So I believe it, but basically the point is I believe in scientists. So if those people who have PhDs in particle physics, who are watching the particle physics on the detectors and have the skill set to be able to analyze the data that they're looking at. The interesting thing about the Higgs is that you could never observe it. They're making inferences about the way that the particles that they're observing are colliding, that there's no other way that it could be anything other than the Higgs. So they're confirming it through maybe observational
it could be something
bias
that we just don't know about yet.
That's where there's room for error. Well,
exactly.
Along the same thing, I'm trusting those scientists when they publish that data that they're professionals in their field at looking at protons and collisions, and they know what they're talking about. Well, it was the same thing with these virologists who were publishing these papers of why they think that the coronavirus made the jump from animals to humans and that it wasn't either created or modified. The thing that they were leaving out is modified in a lab, right? Mm-hmm. Well, so I hear other scientists are saying, well, no, we think that this might have been modified, and here's why. Well, now I'm questioning everything. I saw another paper that came out that was cell phone data of the Wuhan area between October 5th and 11th, and I'd have to look up the dates. And they're saying that there's no cell phone data from this Wuhan area of this lab. Well, now I'm questioning, well, where does this data come from? Is that real? Is the person who's presenting me with this satellite image that everything is black and there's nobody using their cell phones in the Wuhan area around this lab between these times? Where did that come from? Is that bullshit? Did someone make that up? Now I have to question everything.
Oh, Aaron, now we can get into some really crazy conspiracy theories.
I know, it's crazy. It's
because
crazy.
now I can ask for your opinions and your thoughts and be like, well, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's exactly crazy. Well, here's my question to switch gears here. We talked about privacy a lot. There's been a lot of studies in the US about people's cell phones and how that they're doing a lot of research about cell phone movement and who's actually staying home, who's social distancing. Now it's randomized data, so they're not going, oh, well, this is Chris's cell phone, and we see that it's moving. He's not staying home. But that's what I'm saying. Like, why are they even recording this data, and why are they allowed to use it?
Okay, first of all, let's clarify. It's not randomized because AT&T has been keeping cell phone data usage, or I should say all call, well, you know this, all call data usage
Mm-hmm.
from the 80s.
Yep.
And so your phone connects to cell towers,
Mm-hmm.
and that cell tower records what is connected from it,
Yep.
meaning it has the address, like essentially like the MAC address or the IP address. It's just
Mm-hmm.
the phone's address. So it knows what phone has been near what tower and what connecting and when, and they could draw a picture of that. And you can gather that information from when cell phones began all
Yep.
the
And they
way
do.
through now.
Yep.
And so if I wanted to, literally, if I wanted to take, or if I could have the ability to hack into these networks and take my phone's address and find out exactly what area my phone's been pinged and where, I'll have an entire list
Mm-hmm.
from the moment I activated my cell phone all the way to when I'm doing this search. And I can see exactly where it is, what tower, with the GPS,
Right.
all of that stuff. And I can build everything. Now, you don't think that they're just conveniently saying, oh, it's just random data.
Yeah. Sure.
They
We scrubbed
know,
it. Yes.
they have that information.
Oh, it's
They're not
absurd.
going to,
Yeah.
it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
That, again, that's just to try to put your mind at ease, even though,
For sure.
they're
But
definitely.
that's what's scary about it. And from a resource aspect, like if you're running a business, that seems like it takes a lot of effort to literally record and save everything. Like you would think that they'd be like, this is too much effort. We're just going to delete. Like, why do you need to keep those records? Like, I don't get it. Like, just delete the shit. Like, why? I don't get why they even would put the time and effort into doing that, first of all. And it just sucks. And why aren't we as human beings being like, no, like you can't keep records of everything I do all the time, everywhere, forever. That's
All right,
ridiculous.
I got 2 questions for you on this. First question, and I got to ask both questions before you can answer. So first question, what do you think about LA saying that they will shut off the water and gas to businesses that aren't complying with the stay-at-home order, where they're going to shut off their water and gas so they can't conduct a business? And this is from latimes.com. So if you want to go check out that article, that is where it is. So it is a real article that is published by not a bullshit place or a satire place, but
I
from
read it in
LA
the
Times.
Onion.
So,
I told you, Chris, I only get my news from the Onion. It's the only legitimate source that I could.
well, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
And what was my second question? Fuck. Now I forgot because I got distracted.
Oh, that my onion quip was pretty good.
Oh, that's it. What do you think about this snitch thing where it says you can snitch on your neighbors for not social distancing, and you can snitch on businesses now that aren't adhering to the rules? What's your thoughts on those 2 things?
Well, first of all, I would say there's probably a lot of legalities, and I would hope that there would be a process before you would have to go to the extreme of shutting someone's utilities off, and I would question the legality of that, first of all. I know here in our local area, there was a bar, and there was a restaurant and a bar that were still not doing the social distancing, and they both lost their licenses. They lost their liquor license.
Mm-hmm.
And the feds went and shut the restaurant down. So I would think that there would be at least levels, and also I would definitely question the legality of whether you would have to even, do you have the authority to do that, first of all? But we've known from history that people in a position of power will always abuse their power, and anyone does that. So the second thing with the snitch line is the same thing. Like, okay, when this first, the pandemic, about a week after the stay-at-home order was in effect. Actually, no, it was 3 weeks later because it was after I was sick. So the third week, I had been sick for 2 weeks. I was really only sick for a weekend, but I had been quarantined.
So this was the first week of April?
Yes. I had been quarantined for 2 weeks. In the third week, I'm like, okay, I've been in quarantine for 2 weeks.
Oh,
The third
speaking of
week,
tests, positive or negative?
negative.
There you go.
Yep. Did not have the coronavirus.
Most people didn't.
Nope. But yeah, hey man, I had never had sinus pressure and like a burning sensation, but who knows? I slept with my window open. I moved to a new place and it's the window isn't as insulated as it could be. So maybe I was getting a draft. I got a spring cold. Whoop-de fucking do. But you never know.
Yeah.
So 3 weeks after I was better, I'm like, I have to get out and get some exercise just for my own mental health and physical health. I will go hiking. On the way there, I didn't eat enough food that I forgot to I got hungry. I went into one of the local stores there that was an organic food store. Well, the dude who was making my sandwich, I ordered a sandwich. He coughed right into his glove that he was wearing. As he did have a plastic glove on, thank goodness.
Mhm.
But it's a freaking teenage deli dude, 20 years old or 19 years old.
And didn't change gloves, right?
He shouldn't even have been there. Had a cold, coughed right into and I was like, "What kind of sandwich you want?" And I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "All right, dude, I'll just have the prepackaged one, thanks." And I got out of there. Well, then I thought, I'm like,
What if
first
he
of all,
coughed making that sandwich?
that's what I'm saying. But first of all, in a normal circumstance, I would have been like, okay, you shouldn't have a dude who's sick making people sandwiches anyway. But now we have a brand new
fuck that.
pandemic.
Fuck that. Quarantine or pandemic or not, if somebody coughs in their hand and doesn't change their glove, I'd be cursing them out. I'd be like, are you kidding me? Change your fucking gloves.
Right, for sure.
And here's the thing, not because of pandemic, but because I just don't want to get sick, period.
Exactly why. So me, like, trying to be non-confrontational, which I'm working on, I just got a prepackaged sandwich. I'm like, you know what, dude? You're not making my sandwich. Well, then when I got in my car, I'm like, wait a minute. There's a pandemic going on. I actually looked up the number to the store and called the store. And I'm like, hey, I've never done this before. I'm not a complainer, but just so you know, your dude that's in your deli, he literally coughed into his hand and then tried to make me a sandwich. But on a larger point, why is he even there? The governor said non-essential workers like go home. You shouldn't have someone in a deli making sandwiches in the first place. That's not. Understand people need to be in a supermarket to ring people out and stuff, but you shouldn't have people handling food when there's a pandemic going on. Get them out of there. And I'm like, send these people home, and especially get Coffer there, get him out of there, send him home. But I've never called before, and am I a snitch? I don't know. But this whole thing where like snitch on your neighbor, and I'm not down with it, man.
No,
And
that's fucked up.
yeah, it is fucked up. It's shutting off people's utilities. But
That's
hey,
like
man,
a totalitarian, authoritative government.
I don't know if you've ever heard
I
this
don't like
story.
that. 1984, yes.
Well, I've heard the craziest story, and this is true for people who are listening. You can look this up. In Philadelphia, I think it was in the 80s. I'm going to look it up. But there was a group of activists, quote, who were holed up in a house in Philadelphia, and the government literally bombed their house. They dropped C4 onto the top of their house and blew up their house, but they ended up burning down the whole entire neighborhood. So it's in the news lately because the people who were like descendants or relatives of these people who got killed, there was like 11 people and children. They blew up children. The people
The
wanted an apology.
1985 Philadelphia bombing that
Dude.
changed the city forever.
So
From
now,
Vox.
it's the same thing where like, could they have just waited these people out, shut off the utilities, stop their food source, and just wait till they came out? But
Well,
they literally.
Here's the whole thing. First off, do you actually have the authority to shut down businesses like that?
Yep.
Like there's a lawsuit going on that was
Sure.
just filed in Western New York about this. And that's the one thing I'd really like to have is, somebody who's an actual studier of the Constitution, things along that nature, and see
Yeah.
what is truly to like over the line. Have they stepped over it? And in my opinion, again, this is my opinion, absolutely they've stepped too
Mhm.
far, because
Sure.
here's and there's so much things that just don't make sense either. And it's like, you can have Target open, you can have Walmart open, you can have the grocery store open. I get it, grocery store, yeah, you got to go get food, fine, sure, I get it. But you can't have banks open, you can't have, you got to go through the drive through, you have to have all these small businesses shut down, but the warehouses that Amazon is hiring in a hiring spree. And it's like, if your mask works, why do we still have to continue on with not going out and working? Why do we still have to have shelter in place orders?
Mhm.
Why do you have to wear a mask to walk outside your house
Yeah, you don't.
around nobody?
No,
Like, I'm
you don't.
sorry, but this virus that we can't see is not just
No, it's definitely
miraculously
not
floating
immune.
around, because
No.
other's we'd have to wear a mask in the house too,
Well,
which
we
you're
wouldn't.
never going to
If
have that happen.
no, if it was an aerosol like that, then we'd be dead. All of us would be dead. There'd be no the mass casualties from that. That's
Well,
what.
if it no, if it was an aerosol virus, it wouldn't affect us anywhere near the amount.
Mm,
But that's the whole thing. Like, these numbers that come out, yeah, you have a death rate of numbers. You have a death rate, but the thing is that death rate percentage is something that we don't really have a grasp on, because we don't know how many people have come in contact with it who have been asymptomatic or non-symptomatic,
mhm.
and or have had small symptoms to the point where, yeah, they maybe did have it, but it wasn't bad enough for them to even go to the doctors.
Right.
And so we don't know the true aspect of how many people have had it.
Yeah,
And
our
the
country
only
was
way,
completely unprepared.
yeah,
We're completely unprepared. We didn't have testing. We didn't have protective equipment. And the problem, this is the issue that I have, is that if you saw this in China, first of all, if you know how viruses work, you're right. There isn't a border.
well, here's the thing. First of all, with that virus though, you didn't know what to expect. Nobody knew, because China wasn't being honest.
That's the whole problem. Yeah.
Let's blow it off for the top right there.
Hmm.
China is the ones who handled it so poorly that there was a report, or there was a study, or I don't know what it was, but it said if they would have acted differently, it could have stopped up to 95%
Yep.
of everything. And that means nobody would have had to shut down. There would have been
Hmm.
no economic downturn. There would have been no shelter in places. You wouldn't have stopped the entire global economy,
Yep.
because they did that. So the question is, we know that happened. We know that they did that. What how are they going to answer for the mishandling of a global crisis and a global pandemic? And just overall, what will happen in that way? To me, that I want to know. I think that, personal, again, in my opinion, I think somebody or they themselves. Now, the country in the government I'm talking about, not the people, because they didn't have anything to do with it. But I'm talking
Hmm.
about the officials. They need to be accountable for the actions that caused a global pandemic and
I agree
caused a global
100%.
shutdown.
And here's a question. So let's say you're a leader and you're in a position of power, right? And all of a sudden, like, oh, these tests
I'm
show
not.
that
It's my
people,
simulation.
yeah, it's my
I'm fucking
simulation.
all you guys up right now.
Yeah. But so here's the question: if you're in a position of power and you're like, oh, there's a virus um, that is killing, a higher death rate than other normal diseases that normally
Based on
go
the
around.
information we have at the moment.
Right. So is the right course to say, look, anybody who is tested for this thing may have been exposed to it. We are taking you, we are putting you in 100% quarantine where you can't have any contact with anyone. And we have to contain this right here. And you have to do that right off the jump so that that virus can't get out of the area that it's in. That's the pandemic quarantine playbook, right? Well, if you're worried about your international pride and what you're going to look like to the world, and you don't do that, and then you start a global pandemic and countries have to shut down, yeah, you definitely got to be accountable for that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you make that choice if you were like, oh, there's 7 people right now that we know have had this horrible pneumonia-like disease that's deadly? We got to contain this thing. Would you be able to make the choice, like get every person that's been in that hospital, that's been exposed, that ate lunch that day by someone that might have had it, put them at home, quarantine them, lock down everything? Could you have made that decision? And that's essentially what happened. They decided that their pride and their appearance of the way that that they look to the rest of the world was more important than containing a global pandemic. So they definitely dropped the ball.
Well, sorry, the way that you were posting that or positioning that question made me think differently. Like, made me think, do you mean literally the people in Wuhan
Mm-hmm.
or in China, or are you
Yes.
talking about like if I was a position of power outside and seeing what I'd have to do in terms of seeing on another part of the world something's happening, what do I do in the course of action here? So at first, that's where I thought you were going with it, like, well, saying China's over there, we're right here. If I was in a position of power, would you do these steps? But you transition.
The mistake that our country made, to be honest with you, is that they thought that because the virus originated in China, they thought that it was like a one-way path, that the only way that it could get to the US was from Asian travelers coming directly from China to the US, which they did shut down. They banned travel. But
mm-hmm. They also banned travel from Europe too.
Later on.
That was later on, but that was also because
yeah, so it was too late. And I guess I can't really fault them for not recognizing that there's more than one way into the country. But then other preparedness, like, we didn't have a stockpile of the personal protection that we needed. There's a lot of defunding, and I get it. Like, hindsight is 2020.
Okay,
there's a lot. It's like, okay, we only have enough money for this.
Let's be real first. Yeah. We did have enough stockpiled for personal protection in terms of masks and cleaning supplies and things, but the problem is people bought so much of it and hoarded it that they have rooms full of that shit, which could have that could have easily, if you would have gone and did your normal shopping, mm-hmm. and hey, if you got an extra cleaning supply because you want to wash your hands a little bit more, or you want to wash your house a little bit more, your car a little bit more, whatever it might be, or if you got the masks and did it in a way where it was what you actually needed versus you panic buying and buying up everything mm-hmm. you possibly could. And that's what's leading to the shortages. Yeah. And that's the major problem behind it is that.
And testing, like who can prepare for the fact that billions of people around the world are going to be needed to be tested for a virus? You could never stockpile enough resources to provide that.
Well, testing, though, you couldn't be able to test from the beginning because being a novel coronavirus, you don't have the ability to test for it. So that's, this is the weirdest thing to me too, is because China had the breakout. It broke out in Wuhan. There's no denying that. That's where it broke out. And where it came from or whatever. But all of a sudden, they had these tests. And it's like, this is a brand new virus. How do you have this test already?
Yeah, right.
And it like that was the thing that threw me off. And it's like that's why I said, well, do they really have, do they know about it like beforehand? And that's why I am like, now the jury, for me, the jury's still out if this was a virus that was tampered with.
Me too.
But the thing,
completely changing my story now.
But
I've lost faith in my fellow scientists.
No. I'm not saying that it was from the lab in terms where they were bioengineering it. the jury for me is out on that, but I don't like, okay, so if I'm on the fence, I'm more on the side that they had the virus there and there was a leak. And I think that's really what happened. That's my thoughts. That's
Hmm.
my opinions. I don't know if it was bioengineered. It very well could have been, because it's a very strange virus. Like no other virus is like this virus,
Hmm.
on how it attacks certain people and it doesn't attack other people. And things like obesity
I'll
are
be right back.
destroying it. And
Yep, continue. I'll be right back.
okay. So things like obesity are destroying it. Things are exploding it, I should say. Things like old age is exploding it. Things like just many different ailments, like if you are autoimmune, or if you are immune compromised, or if you have any excuse me, any issues or anything like that, it finds you and it attacks you. And it's just crazy how it's able to have done that. And yet other people, for the most part, if they're healthy, they just shake it right off. And um that brings up the case of Michael Yo, who was on, again, Rogan's podcast. We talk about Rogan a lot, but he was on Rogan's podcast just this past week, and he was talking about how his situation was much worse, and his mom had it, and his mom's older, and she shook it right off like a day or two or whatever. So she was perfectly fine. She didn't have the same issues that he did, where he was hospitalized for a while, and he got hit with it really, really hard, to the point where they almost put him on a ventilator, but his doctor's like, no, don't put him on a ventilator because that'll kill him. And so the handling of situations as well, in terms of how to you know make people get on the other side of this, goes up, and the whole ventilator thing comes to question. But it's going back, it's very strange how this thing finds certain people, attacks and changes, and just how you have a two different types of, or three, actually it's three different strains, really. It's, you have a strain in India that's really fucking people up there. You have the Europe strain and the eastern seaboard of the US strain, and then you have the Chinese and the western seaboard of the US, all have different things. So it's just a weird virus that doesn't play like any other virus
Hmm.
ever has, whether it's flu, whether it's a different coronavirus, whatever it is. It's just very different. And so that's why when I look at it, I'm like, something may have gone on.
Hmm.
Like something there may have gone on and it leaked out, and fuck.
Well,
But
so this is where I've lost faith in my fellow scientists. When you really look at when they do genetic testing, I always use that as an example because that's something people are familiar with. When we find out
well,
who's the father,
people know what genetic testing is,
yeah,
but they don't know what genetic testing
right. They don't
is.
know how it works, right?
Yeah.
Well, I know how it works, and um, I always use that as an example because it's something that people can relate to. They know that you can go get tested to see who the parent was.
Yeah.
And what they're doing when they do that is they're taking apart your DNA and they're looking for matches, like you get one from your parent and one from the other parent, right?
Hmm.
So if that matches, you could tell who the father and who the mother is, right? Well, with the coronavirus, it doesn't have a parent and it's not two people. It's only
No.
one little tiny piece of information. So virologists can take samples of the coronaviruses that they have, and they have them from bats, they have them from pangolins. People have samples of these viruses that are
Dogs have
studied in labs.
coronaviruses,
Right.
cats have, there's
Yeah.
so many coronaviruses out there. It's
Right.
just that some haven't made the jump to a human receptor.
Right. So virologists can take these samples and literally take the virus apart piece by piece and look at it and see what it matches, right? So that's what I thought that they were doing, that they did essentially like a DNA test to see who the father was, right? Well, I believed them when they published these papers that said this virus matches a virus that we found in bats and in penguins. And here's the structure of it. And when you talk about mutations, what happens is when the actual virus is being reproduced by a cell, which is how it infects you, and is what causes you to get sick. It's when this virus reproduces itself, it tells your own cells to reproduce this virus, its own programming over and over again. That's what overwhelms your body, and that's how you die. So, because your body can't attack it and kill it, and that's what is causing you to have pneumonia. It floods your lungs, right? Because this virus attaches to all of your little cells in your throat, in your lungs, causes them to reproduce so many times that it infects you, and then you die because you're not producing your own cells, you're producing this virus, right? Well, when they're trying to figure out what is causing this virus to do this, and they do the genetic map of it, it like 92% matches other viruses, but it wasn't 100%, right? So when you talk about mutations, when the virus is replicating itself in your cells, the actual protein, the enzyme that is reproducing it, makes a mistake once in a while, right? And instead of making a certain kind of protein, it makes a different kind of protein. Now, normally, those can either be neutral, it could help the virus, or it can most of the time it hurts them. It's not a good mutation. Most natural mutations is why we're all here. That's how nature works. Everything that reproduces, if it's a successful mutation, it helps you. It's help continues us. Well, when you talk about a difference between the virus that came out of China, the virus that's in India, the virus that is in Europe, it's just because our bodies have replicated that virus so many times that there is bound to be mistakes. So the one that came from China is not going to be the same from the one of us making billions and billions and trillions of copies of it over and over again. Of course there's going to be mistakes. So the one that infected from Europe that got into New York is a different strain, and that's how they can trace what happened to it. It went from China, mutated in Europe, came into the US. That's how that they know in New York that the virus that infected New York came from Europe, because they do a genetic test and they see, oh, this is the same, along the same lines as is infecting people in Europe, which mutated, that came from China. Well, I thought that these virologists that were saying, we looked at this virus and we can tell where it came from, samples that we have on file from bats, and it appears to be natural. Well, they were leaving a part out where, if you know anything about genetics, there can be a strain of the virus that has been not mutated, that has been added to it, that is natural, that is not natural. That a human being physically added a chunk, which is what you're talking about, that is more infectious and affecting certain people a certain way. I didn't know any of this information. Now, because I can't look at this RNA under a microscope myself and look at the actual structure of it and compare it with other known samples, I can't tell 100% accuracy whether there's been a chunk of it added that is causing it to be more contagious. I can't see it for myself, but other scientists are saying that, yes, there might be a chunk of this thing that has been added to it, or has been manipulated.
It's just like the wind. You can't see it, but you know it's there because you feel its effects.
So
and
then,
it's the same thing.
Who am I going to believe? Am I going to believe these scientists that are saying, well, yeah, 92% of this is from either a bat or from a pangolin, and we can see the structure, but there's this little tiny part that we're ignoring. Where did this little tiny part come from? Is that misinformation? Are the scientists who are saying this, is that part of the actual virus, or is it just a result of a very convenient genetic mutation that made this thing be more contagious than another, flu? So we'll never know unless I look at it myself. I'm not a virologist.
No,
I don't know who to believe.
All right, I have one more question for you. Then we're gonna wrap this up.
Okay.
But before we get into that question, You have homework, and that is
Okay.
to look up UN Agenda 20, UN
Yep,
Agenda
found it. I
20
see it. Yeah.
and UN Agenda 2030.
Okay.
So look up those two different agendas. We'll talk. But
Well, first
now,
of all, is this like a conspiracy where the reason we have this virus is because so they could give us all vaccines that have a little chip in it, and there's going to be a chip that tracks me all
damn
the
it, you
time?
were good. I was just about to ask that question,
Ah!
and I was going to get into. I was going to
Okay.
say my final question was, what's your thoughts on this whole Bill Gates thing?
That's okay. So a friend of mine, remember how we had talked about relationships where we were talking about my one friend who's gullible,
Mhm.
who told me
Dude,
that
I bank at Gull and Ball.
that's great. I love that. Well,
Financial Credit Union.
so another friend of mine had called me. I was kind of worried because you have to side with your wife. Okay, and I get that. And if your wife says, I'm fighting with this person,
Unless
don't
she's
talk to him
batshit
anymore,
crazy or completely wrong.
I get it. So he sided with his wife, which I get it 100%. I would have done the same thing. So I thought I had lost a friend because I'm not talking to the spouse right now. We're in a little bit of a tiff, a rocky part of our friendship. And she, being married to him, said you can't be friends with him anymore. And I get it. If I was her husband, and she told me that I can't be friends, you have to side with your wife. I get it. Well, he ended up calling me the other day, but the one thing was the Bill Gates, vaccine chip thing. Where does this come from? Can you explain it to me? I don't know anything about it. Please
Oh,
tell
you
me.
haven't seen anything then?
No.
Oh, so shouldn't ask you that question.
Well,
Um,
I had a conversation with my friend who's telling me, "Oh yeah, man, they released this virus. It's not even real, and what the goal is to vaccinate you with a chip so that they could track where you are all the time." And it's Bill Gates has been talking about this, and there's a great TED talk that you can watch with he actually admits it that he wants to chip everybody. I'm like, what, dude? Is this real?
yeah,
Can
I'm
you
pretty
tell me
sure.
about it?
I believe that TED Talk is true. I can't remember. I know there was something with the Bill Gates TED Talk that I
Okay,
never
well,
actually watched or
I
saw.
watched a TED talk with Bill Gates talking about how the new pandemic or the new threat to society is not war, it's a virus. I watched
Mhm.
that and he's
Yeah, no,
right.
he said that. Yeah, I remember that.
Okay.
But
Well,
okay,
where
so
did this chip and vaccine thing come from?
the whole okay, so the whole thing is this is a guy who is a billionaire who founded Microsoft, and pretty much the entire world uses his computers. Now he doesn't work there anymore, um, or he's not there maybe for whatever he is. But now it's the Bill Gates and whatever the hell his wife's
Yeah,
name,
Melinda. Yeah.
Bill and Linda Gates Foundation, and they're trying to do philanthropy work. And one of the big things was they were doing vaccines towards women in Africa. I forget what country. Was it Africa or India? I don't remember.
Either one.
It's in a third world country
Mm-hmm.
where they don't have access to these things. So
Mm-hmm.
the problem, I guess, was some of the viruses have some, or I mean, some of the vaccines have issues where it ended up killing more people than it probably helped. Was and this is stuff that I didn't
Oh, you're
actually
frozen.
look
Okay.
up. This is stuff that I've heard through the
Right.
grapevine. So let me just clarify
Sure.
that it's not something that
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
I didn't.
Could be misinformation. We don't
Yeah.
know. Right. I
So
get
I'm
it.
just giving you
No, I'm following along with
the
you. Yeah.
conspiracy theory setup
Sure.
of it.
Sure. Yeah.
So again, anything I'm saying, I didn't really truly look up
Okay.
except for a few things that I do know. So
Yeah.
I do know that yes, they were giving out vaccines. I do know that there were problems with it. I heard it gave more problems to people than it helped, and that they weren't there. And then a lot of people are questioning, why are you even in the realm of vaccines when you're a software engineer? So they had that whole conundrum. Then he has come out in public and said, talking about this microchip again through a TED talk, which I haven't watched, I don't know about, but there are other talks that I've seen, through a Pentagon leaked video that I actually did see where they were talking about, and I don't know the validity of the source.
Sure.
I don't know the validity of, but it's supposed to be that, but it doesn't matter because the conversation was a person who was upfront talking about microchipping people and, having those chips in place. And I think that was taken in like 2003 or 2000, like a long time. This was a while ago. So you just obviously build up over time on that information and that research and stuff. So then all of a sudden this pandemic hits, and you said he had that talk, that TED talk, which I think was 2 years ago. Correct me if I'm wrong.
There was one in 2015 that I watched, and it just
okay,
says
so it's that
we
one
need
was
to
5
prepare. Yeah,
okay,
but I don't know if that's the one.
No, this one, the one where he's talking about the virus. So then all of a sudden it's like, well, where are you getting this information from? Your billion, and then you bring in this the Illuminati stuff and all that crazy jazz. But then what you do, what ends up happening is he's been saying that everybody needs to get vaccinated. Everybody needs to have this vaccine. But first off, we don't know if there could even be a vaccine made for this or an effective vaccine for it. Why would you say something like that? Again, you're a software engineer. You don't know jack shit when it comes to virology and vaccines.
Yep.
So just saying that everybody needs to have a vaccine doesn't make any sense when we don't know if there's going to be a vaccine that works or not. And then they're saying because you're going to put this vaccine, that there's going to be microchips that they're going to put into the vaccine, and because it's going to be a mandated vaccine, and things like that. So there's this. A lot of people are questioning, why the fuck are you even getting involved in this stuff when you are a software engineer who makes computers,
right? And
that's your expertise. You are not somebody who knows how to make vaccines. You are not somebody who knows policy, and he's trying to be this person he's not, whether it's ego, whether it's true philanthropy, where he's trying to be a person who people could look up to. Things could get twisted, things could get changed. Again, I haven't done the research on anything, so when I brought up the question to you, I was just fucking around.
Well, it's funny because here's my issue. I don't even have an issue with anything that you said. So all I know about Bill is what I've heard over the years. So if you are at one time he was the richest man in the world, right? Yeah. So if you had more money than anyone in our time, then you have a responsibility. Like, okay, the first goal for anyone is to be filthy rich, right? Well, once you achieve that, what do you do, right? So all I know about him is that I don't even know about the vaccines or anything that he was involved with. The only thing that I know about him is that he started the pledge to give away all of his money when he died, and he's getting other people to do the same thing. And then,
I don't know if it's all of his money or if it's a large chunk.
Yeah. For him, it's all, but there's like the foundation that he started, you have to give like 90% of your wealth or something crazy, right? So, and there's a lot of people who signed up for the Giving Pledge, I think it's called, if I'm recalling correctly.
Yeah. So people like Zuckerberg and a few others,
Yeah, which it's a good thing. Like, we have enough money to last forever. What are we going to do with it all, right? Well, then the only thing I know about his philanthropy was that he bought nets for people in Africa that were malaria nets, and he helped stop people from getting malaria because they have these deadly mosquitoes that give you malaria, and if you have a net around your bed, the mosquitoes can't get in the net and bite you, right? So he that's the only thing I know about him. And I think the other thing that he did was that I was kind of like, okay, he wanted to make condoms that were like more efficient or helped detect STDs or something, right? But if you have an ungodly amount of money, you have to decide, what to fund. So then I hadn't talked to my friend in a while, and he's my fishing buddy. And the only thing we can do right now is like go fishing and stuff. Apparently can't even do that. According to California rules, I can't sit and fish, right? Well,
because I'm
I
proud
was
to
kind of
be an
upset.
American
Yeah.
where
So
I
he
think
called
that
me.
I am free.
Yeah.
But
He,
then that asshole signed a decree and took those rights from me. So it's time to stand up and say,
yeah.
fuck you, Andrew Cuomo, you piece of shit.
Yeah. No, not for me. I stay home. I'll gladly stay home. I'm not going to get coronavirus. More importantly, I'm not going to spread coronavirus to someone. I get why they're doing what they're doing, and it's working as far as you ask me. But now,
But
now
is
that the
it?
threat is over, now it's going to happen. So it's not over. This thing is not going away. Right now, it's the summertime, but the numbers show that the infection rate is low. If it starts going back up again, then we're all going to have to stay home again. I get it. But with
Are
the
we going
Bill
to do this
Gates
every
thing,
year, though?
we can't. We
From
just can't.
October to
No, you
May, are we
can't.
just going to be closed? No,
No,
that
you
we
can't.
can't do that.
No, you
I'm
can't.
with
So
I'm with
that's where
Rogan.
leadership
I'm
comes in.
moving.
Like, yeah, that's where leadership comes in. Like, okay, there's a
I'm a
deadly virus
Texan.
for people, then give, we need people. They're dumping out milk here at farms because there's no one to buy the milk at the restaurants they usually have. But then there's other people who need milk. So give those people who don't have jobs that are out of work, have them drive trucks to bring the milk to the people, or the farmers that are like plowing under their fields because they got too many zucchinis, but then there's no zucchinis at the store. Well, give those people jobs to go pick up the zucchinis at the farm and bring them to the stores instead of the schools where they need it. This is all leadership where we have these problems where we have, need people are losing jobs here, but yeah, put those people to work somewhere else. That's leadership, right? And there's
Now,
food shortages. Get the food from here to there. But anyway,
now
that's a whole nother conversation.
the I gotta say the good thing about this is it exploited all of the issues in the systems.
For sure.
It
For
exploited
sure.
all of them.
Yep.
So
Every
now
one of
it's
them,
like
man.
now that they are these glaring showings of things, it's like what can we do to mitigate these problems, to solve these problems, or to at least make them a little bit better? Because some of the problems that we have, it's going to be extremely difficult to solve.
Yep.
And that's the other thing. It's like, well, your way is probably going to be different from my way, but who's right?
Exactly.
And so, and again, that's when it comes down to ego and shit.
Yeah.
And
But back to this whole Bill Gates, I got off on a tangent. Back to the whole Bill Gates thing. So a friend of mine had called me and he says, oh man, he's like, they just want to give you the vaccine so that they can chip you. And it's, Bill Gates has been talking about this. And it's, there's a video about it and everything. Now I haven't seen the video. I don't know about if he even said any of this stuff. The only one that I actually watched was before this thing where he was talking about, we need to be prepared for a pandemic. That's the biggest threat right now. That's all I heard. So here's my question to you, sir. People who are saying the earth is flat, even though there's evidence to the contrary right behind you.
Please tell me this is
Yeah.
what are you talking? That's flat. Do you see the disc ring?
I could see it. Yeah.
It's flat.
But people like him who call me up and say the most extreme thing, like they're trying to give you a mandated vaccine so they can trip and track you. Are these people saying this to try to get attention? Like, is it an attention grab where this is how I get attention from people is by saying extreme things so that they engage with me? Do they actually believe what they're hearing on the internet?
I think that I think there's a grain of truth of everything in everything. And there's a law that's in New York right now. Or not a law. There's a bill in New York right now. And I think it's House. It's a House or Senate. I can't remember what the bill is. Fuck. That I want to do. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Let me.
All right. Well, you
it.
look that up. Let me say this. My friends who get caught up in these conspiracies, and it hasn't just been the Bill Gates thing. Every time there's something that comes out that is an extreme, that's like a conspiracy theory on the internet, they're completely caught up on it. So chemtrails is one of them. They're so caught up in the government is spraying chemicals on us thing that every time they look up, they would point out to me, oh, look at that. The chemtrails are thick today. They're definitely spraying those chemicals at us. And they're like, They don't know things like there are detectors all around the country where scientists go out there and get the filters and look at the chemical composition of them and measure what is in the air.
Yeah,
They
it's
don't
not
know
that hard.
that. But then when I try to present that evidence to them, like, look, these
Ego.
detectors, no, they're all in on it, right?
Ego, yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Well,
like,
that's because, well, I'm telling you, that's the thing. The world's flat. Can't you see? I mean,
I see it right
you
there.
see the reflection of the
Yeah.
ice. You
It's
see
definitely
the
flat.
reflection of the ice.
Yeah.
Like that's the sun's reflection of the ice.
But deep down, is it
I
just how
mean,
they get
we've all
attention from
seen
people?
Thor.
Yeah, for
Asgard's
sure.
flat.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, dude,
What on God's green flat earth are you talking
I
about?
completely forgot about this, Chris. We'll end on this because I want to talk.
No, hold on. I got
All right.
the bill.
Then we'll
So
talk about Endgame.
yeah, save that for a second. So this is AB 99. This is a state bill in the New York State Assembly, and it is relates to the removal of cases, contacts, and carriers of communicable diseases that are potentially dangerous to the public health, which means they can come into your home, take you out of your home, detain you for as long as they have time frames in there, but essentially they can renew those time frames as long as they want, that they deem are a threat
Hmm.
to public safety. But the thing is, the language is so open-ended
Right.
that it could mean something like this disease. It could mean something like HIV.
Sure.
I mean, it could mean so many different things that, and it's also based upon the threat or the thought of you
Right.
having it. So something like that bill seems extremely dangerous.
Oh, I'm with you.
And somewhere in the bill, I forget what subdivision or paragraph it is, it talks about mandatory vaccine.
Hmm.
So
Oh,
like vaccinating people against their will for something that maybe they don't want to get vaccinated for.
sure.
And there's a huge, I mean, we all know there's a controversy regarding vaccines, and
Hmm.
we all know that a lot of people don't get the flu vaccine, even though it's recommended, and a lot of people just say, "Fuck it, I don't really care,"
Right.
or "No, I don't want to get it."
Yeah, I'm one of
So
those people.
that you don't want to
I've
get it,
never got a flu vaccine.
yeah. And there, like something like that would say, "Well, the flu's a communicable disease.
Sure.
It's highly contagious. There's a death rate to it. There's a
There
lot of people
definitely
that die.
is.
You could get up to 80,000 deaths per year
Yep.
just in the US. And that's on a bad year, but we have it every year. But now because there's a vaccine for it, you have to get that vaccine. Otherwise, we're going to come in and force you to get it.
Well, the one that
So
I had
there's
an issue with.
that bill is a slippery
No,
slope.
I'm with you. Well, I have a lot of thoughts on this because it's a complex issue. But my first thoughts were I thought that they already had that power. So, like, if you get Ebola, right, by some miraculous miracle of misfortune, you get Ebola. I already thought that the government could say, "You have Ebola. We are taking you. You are in quarantine. You do not have a choice." I thought
think
that they already could do
there's
that.
there's certain aspects of it that are this is a what is it?
No, but I get what
It
you're saying.
changes it
It's a
changes
slippery
certain
slope.
things. So
So even if the bill was more descriptive, that they actually listed
here it is.
communicable diseases,
Well,
like if you get Ebola,
here it
then
is. It's an act to amend public health law in relation to the removal of cases, contacts, carriers, and of communicable diseases and potentially dangerous to the public health. But it leaves it so open to like whatever. Its
yeah, for
purpose
sure.
is to allow the governor or appropriate health officials to order the removal or detention of any person afflicted with a communicable disease in the event that there's a state of health emergency declared by the governor in relation to such disease. So again, we could say, we want to work on HIV. There's an outbreak of HIV. There's an outbreak of flu. There's an outbreak of whatever it might be. And yeah, I get it with this pandemic. Now this
Yeah.
bill was brought up last year, so this is 2019. This is not.
I drank too much tea again. I'll be right back.
All right.
This is
Well,
so crazy.
yeah, I'm just saying it
Continue.
was in 2019.
We'll continue because I'm with you. Like, even if the wording was more specific, which you're right, they are leading it open-ended. I work in an industry that has very specific rules, and there's different legalities in each state. But
Mhm.
even the people that I work for misinterpret what those rules are.
Oh yeah,
And
that's the whole
even it's
thing
a
is,
plain, so there's so much room for um, just error. Because what one word
well, then the
means to
people
you
who write the
may mean something
bills.
different. Yeah, may mean something different. I get you. It's a slippery slope. So you keep the listeners company for 2 minutes, and then we'll talk about Endgame. I'll be right back.
Okay, because we got to end this game quick. um, I guess I'm going to talk about Endgame. Fuck it. No, I don't know. So, Real Rideshare Stories is a great YouTube channel that talks about rideshare. Sorry, that's Aaron's segue. Anytime I go to the bathroom, he always talks about it. So I just kind of had to give it to you a little bit. No, but yeah, whatever you guys think about that, put in the comments below. Share your discussional points. We may not get to it. We probably won't get to it because we do a lot of different things, but just discuss amongst yourselves. And the whole thing is be mindful of others, especially in a world full of trolls and bullshit. Be mindful. Everybody is entitled to their own thoughts and opinions, no matter how ridiculous or crazy it might sound. They may have a reason for a particular reason. Sometimes they may just want to be heard, and sometimes they just want to say something. So, whatever it is, just be respectful to people. I was just talking about it, if they wanted to talk in the comments amongst themselves and debate any issues they can, but just to remind people to um, know that everybody is entitled to their own opinion, whether it's crazy or not, um, and just to be respectful. So,
Yeah,
because
as
Aaron just
long
came
as
back.
as long as everyone else's opinion agrees with my opinion, then that's okay.
No,
That's not how it works.
no,
Because that's how a lot of people are
no.
functioning out there. It's
That's
like,
how a lot of people are
yeah,
functioning, and
it's
it's
crazy,
goddamn
man.
sad because, and that's
Right.
the whole thing. I wanna that's one of my main focuses with this is to be able to help change that. Is where you and I have differences of opinions, you and I have differences of thoughts and ideas, and just a lot of differences. Nobody's the same. Nobody will be the same. If everybody was the same, it would be boring. Actually, there was just a movie that came out that I watched with David Spade the other day. I think it's called The Wrong Missy or something like that.
I saw
It's
that.
on
Was that any
Netflix.
good?
Um, it's funny to a point. It's very predictable. Once you actually see the setup, you know the story. So just seeing how the story plays out is actually pretty interesting, and it's pretty good in that aspect. But it just goes to show you how people who are the same are very boring, and people who aren't the same can really bring out the best in each other, and sometimes the worst, but usually the best when it's in a good positive relationship or good positive way. And that's the whole thing. Like I said, the purpose behind things that I want to try to do and operate under is having the ability to have open-ended discussion where there could be multiple viewpoints, and we can talk about some crazy ass shit, but at the end of the day, you have your thoughts, I have my thoughts, and if they change, cool. If not, then cool. But that's the whole thing where I think more people, I hope, can realize that, where we can all have different discussions and talk. And yeah, some people are going to say some stupid shit, piss me the fuck off, and I'm going to go at their throat and I'll cut their jugular. So don't let me I mean, that'll happen. Like sometimes some trolls will try and troll me on my channel, and I'll just have fun playing with them and pushing their buttons. So I do that. And
I have a
just be,
great, I have a great, I think it was on Joe Rogan's podcast. Did you hear the guy who talked about how he responds to trolls by saying, "Thank you for this well thought out idea. You've completely changed something where he completely changed my opinion or something."
yeah.
I wrote it down. That's
Oh,
great. So you
you
have to
got to
try to
send
use
me
that.
that because then I can
Yeah, man.
copy and paste it to all the
Yeah.
dum dums out there that I just,
Yeah.
you get that automatic message.
Yeah. Well, not to play devil's advocate here, but when they came out with those rules that Rogan was complaining about, um, he's a responsible adult that has intelligence. But dude, you have to realize that like people are so dumb. So
Oh
like
my
when
God.
they
Yeah.
have to tell people like, hey, um, wear a mask.
Here's the thing. I think a person is smart. I've always said this. A person is
Yep.
smart.
Men in Black.
People are dumb.
Men in Black.
When they say that.
Oh, it's a great. I'll send you the meme. It's a meme. Memes are on point. The memes are
Well,
on
show me
point.
this because dude, I've been saying this for so many years that I was in grade school when I was fucking saying that. So
What's the Men in Black where Josh Brolin is Q or is that the guy's name? Who's character? Who's not Will Smith? Who's the other guy? He was in
Tommy
Lee Jones.
Yeah,
Is that his name?
yeah. He was in all of them.
Yeah. So which one is the one where Tommy Lee Jones is young and Josh Brolin plays him as a young guy? That's the one he says it in.
That
It might be
is.
I'll have to look it up.
I know the movie. I know when it came out. I was saying that
it's number
before
3.
that.
Okay.
I was, dude. No, I was saying that. I was probably.
Oh
like,
yeah, I believe you, man.
I was
They-
probably like 13, 14 when
Yeah, they
I
definitely
came to
say
that
that.
conclusion.
Yeah.
And I'm like, people are I'm like, a person is smart, but people are dumb.
They are.
And here's like, I could say, oh, that just backs up my entire theory about this is my simulation. But in actuality, it's like, no, if we have that thought process, there's 8 billion people in the world. A few people are going to have the exact same thought process. So you're
there's a
going
term
to
for
see it replicated somewhere.
There's definitely a term for it. But proof that it's my simulation is because I saw that meme either yesterday or earlier today, and here you are talking about it. So it's definitely my simulation.
You brought it
However,
up. You brought it up. You just. But the thing is, I said that how long ago? So
it's true.
I'm gonna get you instead of you getting the shirt that says I am not an NPC in your simulation. I'm going to get you a shirt that says I am an NPC in your simulation.
Well, look, man, this whole virus thing.
I'm just kidding. You are a playable character in mine.
Yeah. Well, let's take it to the extreme. When there was a deadly virus in Wuhan, and people were like, "Oh, there's a deadly virus," and even though the government did cover it up for a while, which is why we were behind the ball, once they did actually announce it, if every single person was like, I'm just going to stay home, and they were intelligent and knew that if they get within 20 feet of someone, they could possibly spread the virus to someone.
What? 6 feet doesn't work?
Well, you're mitigating, right? So, right. But if they knew, like, okay, if we all literally have zero contact with anybody, the virus would never spread out of China. It's because people didn't understand how viruses work, or they didn't know they had it. That's because people were asymptomatic. That's why we're in this situation. But
you can't blame it on that. The thing is, we've had so many viruses and so many sicknesses, and people get sick all the time, and they get healthy, and you get sick again a couple of years later. And they hear there's this virus that's like the flu. You get these symptoms, and people are like, whatever. Who cares?
That's what Fox News said in the U.S., but that wasn't what was going on.
That's what they were
China.
saying were the symptoms. The 3 symptoms are, tightness of breathing, are fevers and chills, which is the exact same thing as what the flu symptoms are.
Yeah, that's what our news said, but that wasn't what the doctors in China were saying. The doctors in China were saying, this is pneumonia that is killing people quicker than any pneumonia we've ever seen. And they start raising the red flags, and then the Chinese government came in and took those people away. And that's where the cover-up.
And they never saw them again.
It's exactly what happened. And the one guy died. He ended up dying.
Yeah.
So that guy's a hero.
Because flat Earth.
Yeah, even after a couple weeks after that, when the cat's out of the bag and it's clear that this is an infectious disease and more people in Wuhan were getting it, they did kind of lock down the whole city, but not as quick as they could have. But if they would have enacted what you were just reading, like the bill where it's like infectious emergency disease, and literally quarantined everyone away.
That's being able to remove somebody from their property, which technically is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. So I could see that very well being struck down.
That's here in the U.S., but that's not in China, which is a communist country. But because of their pride,
dude, they just pick up and move people and say, "Hey, we're building a dam here. See ya."
Yep. Yep. A
That's
whole lot of stuff.
They don't give a shit.
Yeah, but then
That's why the boats were built in the boats in 2020 or no 2012. The movie were built there because they were the only ones who would do that type of things because here we couldn't.
Mhm, for sure.
So
That's why this whole thing's such a huge mess.
Endgame,
Oh, Endgame.
because I'm about
So,
to end this game.
all right. So Vision. First of all, I didn't understand where Vision came from.
Did you
I
ever
didn't
see
know who
Age
he
of
was.
Ultron?
Well, I just watched it.
Okay, so that's where.
Yeah, that's where Vision came from. So in Age of Ultron, uh, Captain America kind of moves Thor's hammer a little bit. Like if you
Yeah,
watch, when he tries to pick it up, it moves a little bit.
shakes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and then Thor looks at him like, "What?"
yeah, that's foreshadowing. Now,
Yeah.
this is all probably speculation, but do you think that Captain America knew that he could pick up the hammer and he just didn't want to
Do you want
pick
to
it
give
up?
my thoughts, or would you like to give the actual true fact behind it?
Yeah, tell me what happened because I'm not.
No,
I'm you.
he could
This is your
always.
universe.
Okay, well, no, this is like confirmed by
Yeah,
the
yeah.
writers and
Tell
the
me.
writing
Yeah,
staff.
good, good.
So this is actual. No, he was worthy to be able to lift it. The reason why he didn't is because he didn't want to hurt Thor's ego.
Oh, whoa, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, mystery on that one solved.
So,
All right.
and I gotta say, like, that's the one thing I love about the MCU is the way that the movies progress, and you have in Phase One, you have like literally the intros of the characters. I mean, obviously, you have two Iron Man in Phase One, but it gives you the intros of them, how they are, and then how they progress as their character development through the entire series all the way through Endgame. And you can see the differences in all of them. And you know, going back to the first Avengers, when they're up in the helicarrier and Captain America and Iron Man are going back and forth, and he's like, why would you, or he said something about like, it's all about you. You wouldn't lay down your life when the line's on the or
Captain
whatever
America
Captain
said that
America
to Tony
actually said.
Stark, right?
Yes,
Okay.
whatever he actually said. I don't remember the specific line, but the funny thing is though, he was ready to sacrifice himself in Iron Man 1 at the very end of the movie when Obadiah was going all crazy and he was stuck up on the above the big arc reactor, which was
Mm-hmm.
about to overload, and Tony Stark is like, overload it, do it now, and Pepper's like, no, you'll die.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, so he already laid down the possibility of doing that in the first movie before
Yeah.
that. And it's like, I've never seen anybody really pick up on that. And I do watch a lot of different movies on the Easter eggs and just the different things about that. But yeah, that was one of the things that I've never understood was like, why would, but that already happened. And then
Right.
the same thing too with even at the end of Avengers, Iron Man and Tony Stark is the reason why they all survived and
Yeah, for
lived,
sure.
because that nuke was coming through
Mm-hmm.
and he went up into the wormhole and continued to go on, and he didn't think he was going to come back, and
Yeah.
he just did it without even questioning. So it's like that line or that aspect never truly made sense to me, because he always did do things after he grew up, which would have been that whole ordeal in the
In the caves.
caves.
Yeah.
So he grew up very quickly at that point and saw the world in a much different light, and it shattered his personal being, and kind of created this whole new Tony essentially. and I don't know, like that. I don't know if those are plot holes, if somebody just never made that connection or what, because I've never seen anybody say anything like that. And it's like,
Right.
that line never made sense to begin with. And they're like, well, at the end game, he's the one who actually truly did lay his life
Yeah.
down because of
Yeah.
what he did.
For sure. Well, man. So I went to see Endgame in the theater, but I hadn't watched it since then.
Hmm.
And man,
Dude, I
so
own all 23.
extreme
And
spoiler alert for people who haven't seen Endgame yet. But after I left the theater, I went with my friend Nate. I remember walking out of there like, man, just gut punch after
shout out
gut
to
punch
Nate.
after gut punch. Yeah, hey Nate. Um, I mean, we were both like, we didn't even talk like the whole way home, driving back to his house. Nobody even said anything. We're just like bummed, man. Like
Oh
just
yeah,
gut
it was
punch after
crazy.
gut punch.
Like,
But
you know, yo, let me tell you this before we end the end game. So it came out on a Thursday, and I was was driving Uber and Lyft that weekend, and I couldn't go until Monday because some scheduling issues with my girlfriend and myself, not able to go until Monday. So I was driving, and anybody who I picked up from the movie theater, I said, "Did you just see Endgame?" Yep. I said, "If you say a word about it, I'm kicking you out."
well,
And
that's
nobody
legit.
said a word about it. Somebody
Yeah.
tried talking about it. I'm like, nope, nope.
You know, the same thing happened at my office with Game of Thrones. I work in an office with 215 people, and nobody
Allegedly.
said a word. Allegedly, it's in an undisclosed location.
Somewhere in this
Nobody
world.
said a word
Maybe
of.
Wuhan.
Yeah, I don't work with anyone now, which is great. This is awesome. I don't have to see anyone or do anything. It's great.
And
Well,
my coffee actually has vodka in it.
yeah, that's
Hold on,
exactly right.
hold on.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Wait, you wanted
I
to say
don't
something?
have pants on.
Wait, hold on. You wanted to, hold on. I need a little bit more caffeine.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
What were you saying?
So Endgame, when I rewatched it this time, I was able to understand when they're explaining about going back in time. In the theater, when whoever Tilda Swinton's character is, the bald Doctor Strange's associate, is explaining to the Hulk.
Oh,
Um,
the mass or the, oh my God, you're killing me now. The
yeah,
ancient one.
yeah, okay. So um, at first I didn't pick up on it because the whole theme of the movie is like Back to the Future, like you just go back and change time, and then
No, they specifically said this is not Back to the Future.
right. Well, I didn't understand what they were saying about the actual linear time, about why they couldn't just go back and like, take out Thanos or do this sort of thing. But now I get it to where if I were to go back in time to the past, that becomes my new future. So
Hmm.
no matter what, the in the Avengers anyway, the arrow of time always goes forward. And even if I were to go to a different point, that's still my new reality. It's
Hmm.
still my new future. You can never go back in time. You can only create a new future for yourself, even if that happens to be something that
Yes. So
already
instead
happened.
of pulling space through time, you're timing or pulling
That's
time through
exactly it. I
space.
never got any of that before. And then the whole rest of the movie, though, just the gut punch after gut punch.
The
I'm not
gut
going to
punch.
spoil it for people who haven't seen it, but man, now I'm bummed, dude. I have to watch
I
something
am
else.
Iron Man.